Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 874 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again. And we're hearing of the Russian Navy tucking its tail and running off to Russia, and we have some very good news today, and it's good to see you all once again.
And, of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have gotten absolutely amazing news that the Russian Black Sea Fleet has been defeated as of today, with the last combat vessel of the Black Sea Fleet that is remaining afloat, leaving the port of Sevastopol and fleeing to the Russian ports of Novorossiysk and the Russian brand new port at Ochimchiri within the area of West Abkhazan. A major defeat for the Russian Navy, as it is showing that the Ukrainians have been able to win the naval war in the northern Black Sea. We have also been able to get major news from deep inside of the Russian Federation, as we were able to hear that a major power plant within this region exploded, plunging an entire 120,000 Russian civilians into absolute darkness, as the power plant has sustained serious damage at such a vital railroad crossroads within the Russian Federation. We not only were able to hear that, but within the region of South Korea, we were able to hear the announcement of a brand new directed energy weapon, also known as a laser weapon, that will be used to combat any kind of drone warfare moving on into the future at an extremely inexpensive rate per shot. Not only that, we were also able to get, once again, news of showing the axis of evil continuing to try and have a sway in the Western world, as we were able to uncover a story today that apparently the Islamic Republic of Iran was planning and was soon to conduct an assassination attempt against a presidential candidate here within the United States, once again trying to sway the diplomatic process, or more so the democratic process here within the United States and within the Western world at large through subvert and coercive means. We were also able to get incredibly large news from inside of the area of Western Russia, as we were able to see that Putin is setting up a huge amount of air defense in the rear line areas behind the front lines, around his bunkers and private residences. We are believing that this may even be leading the Russian airspace to be widely open in some other areas because of the complete lack of air defense and the massive bolstering of air defense sites and structures around Putin's residences and bunkers. And not only that, we were also able to get incredibly huge news from the Ukrainian front lines, as the Ukrainians have inflicted wildly high casualties over just the past few days against the Russian Federation's forces in Vovchansk, Bakhmut, and Avdiivka, instilling heavily high losses in the Vovchansk front and possibly starting to shake up the Russian lines and make more ground, while in the areas of Bakhmut and Avdiivka, Russian offensives have largely grinded to a standstill, and while taking heavy losses, are showing absolutely no progress at all. We have absolutely huge news to cover here over the past 48 hours, and we're going to be getting right into it immediately with the bombshell announcement that came out of Sevastopol today that the last combat vessel of the entire Black Sea Fleet has just sailed from Sevastopol port for Novorossiysk or for Ochimchiri, and the Black Sea Fleet will no longer use Sevastopol as a combat stationing of their warships within the area of the Black Sea. This is a major development and probably one of the largest defeats that we have been able to hear of in the entirety of the war for the Russian Federation. This is one of the few areas where we can say, without a shadow of a doubt, the Russian Federation has been entirely defeated. And what's most shocking about it is that the Ukrainians were greatly disparaged for firearms or any kind of weapons the entire battle on the Black Sea, but nevertheless came out on top. So, I'm going to read y'all exactly what we have right here to make sure that we get nothing confused and to make sure that y'all hear this in its original written form. As of the 15th of July, Russia withdrew the last patrol ship of its Black Sea Fleet from the occupied Crimea, as stated by Dmytro Pletenchuk, spokesman for the naval forces. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation had 74 warships. During almost 2.5 years of war, Ukraine destroyed or disabled at least a third of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation, a large majority being the combat vessels of that fleet. Ukraine managed to sink or damage dozens of ships using unmanned maritime drones called the Magura, the Sea Baby, and other similar methods, which are implemented by the naval forces of Ukraine. And on top of that news, we were able to get proof that the last Russian warship that was based in the city of Sevastopol set sail today, hugging the coastline of Crimea, and then set a course east, heading towards the area of Novorossiysk or towards the area of Ochimchiri. This is incredibly major news. Unbelievable.
Seems like a sort of an illogical thing to do if you plan on holding on to Crimea. If you're thinking in Putin's head, why would they take their boats and ships away from Crimea, considering that they want to hold on to it? And also, we've known that they've moved air defense out of Crimea as well. It's kind of weird what's going on with Russian deployments around that area.
I would have to say that it is a very weird thing. I would have to generally say I think their hands are largely tied at this point, and they really don't have a choice, because it seems as though no matter what they plan on doing, whether they want to hold Crimea or not, they cannot protect their naval warships from the Ukrainian drones, the Maguras and the Sea Babies, not even around Sevastopol, but all the way over in Novorossiysk itself, as we've seen major amounts of naval drone attacks also occurring over here as well. But it seems as though the Russians are attempting to preserve the last remnants of their fleet, considering that a third of it has been destroyed so far, by moving it to Novorossiysk and Ochimchiri. And in this attempt, they hope to ensure that the Ukrainian naval drones will either have to skirt through the entirety of the Black Sea or along the Sevastopol coast for a very long distance, giving them some reaction time to possibly be able to fire upon those drones or destroy them before they make it to Novorossiysk and Ochimchiri. But it seems as though they simply cannot take losses anymore, and that's why they're taking such a drastic measure, is because if they continue to keep the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol, there won't be a Black Sea Fleet left, regardless whether they want to hold Crimea or not going on into the future. But at the exact same time as we were getting this shocking news out of the Black Sea, we were also able to get some fairly shocking news from inside of Russia, as we were able to hear that huge amounts of air defense, possibly even stripped from the Crimean Peninsula, once again opening up the Black Sea Fleet to even further attacks and heavier damage by Ukrainian forces, has been moved possibly around Putin's mansions and bunkers. We were able to get a series of pictures today showing off these defensive sites. What you were looking at right here is a tower that has been built in the middle of a forest. It's about 4 stories tall, and on top of it, a Panzer S1 system. An entire truck has been put on top of this 4-story structure meant entirely to hold this vehicle. We were also able to see that that's not the only one. This map actually shows an area around Putin's bunker and all of the air defense systems scattered around that had been found on Maxar satellite, including an entire and heavily advanced S-400 air defense system, along with a wide and large amount of Panzer S-1s that had been dotted across the entirety of the countryside near to this bunker. We were also able to...
Did I hear you right as well? You said they built an entire structure to put the like the mobile truck, like the air defense system on top?
Oh yeah, look at that thing. You can see the shadow of it. It's about
What?
4 stories tall.
Why? Like, why would they do that? Like seriously speaking, why? Because that doesn't make any sense to me.
It gets it above the tree line, so that way you can actually look out in a wider field of view.
But why a truck, though? Why wouldn't they just put, like, a stationary unit on top of it?
Well, that is a great question, Matthew, and that all comes down to cost. You see, the Panzer S1 system has a truck attached to it, but the thing is that it's actually an entire fire control system that is on the back of this Panzer. So what we're looking at here is the actual Panzer S1, and this back part of the truck, this chassis area right here behind the front cab, is the entire fire control and operational system of the air defense system that is built onto a Panzer. So that includes the autocannon's ammo, the traverse, and also the generator to be able to power the radar, and not only the radar, but also the gun and traverse motors as well. And then inside of this little area right here where you see this kind of a door, 3 crew members sit side by side inside of this little cab back here, facing towards the gun on the truck, and operate the air defense system. So if they wanted to try and get a Panzer system without the truck and just put it on top of this thing, they would have to do a lot, and probably a pretty decent amount that would be cost prohibitive, to try and separate the fire control system and the actual anti-aircraft gun and missiles from the truck and then just put it up there on its own. So it probably is cheaper just to take the entire Panzer, lift it on a crane straight up onto this concrete pillar thing, and then just place it up there.
That is crazy, though. It's like for Russia to brag all the time about how good their defense industry is and how, like, advanced they are with their weapons and things like that. That's a huge waste of resources to have literally an engine, a cab, the wheels, the whole chassis itself just totally wasted, considering the fact it can't even move because now it's on top of a stationary, like, tower. It's just crazy to see. I understand for, like, money reasons, but just for other reasons, common sense, that's kind of just wild.
It is a little wild, but honestly, there is a little bit of sense to it. It's not really like these things are going to be shooting and scooting. They're just kind of like a security perimeter set up around the area, so they don't really have to move too much, because it's not like the Ukrainians are going to fly a drone in, figure out where these Panzers are, and then fly in another to hit those Panzers, because it's so far inside of Russia. They most likely would never have to move these things around, so it would just be a lot cheaper to plop them up there and then just let them see about shooting stuff down. But it is really stupid to see that they would do that nevertheless and put these things on stands. I mean, this isn't the only one on a concrete stand like this. They're everywhere. Every single blue dot on this map is another concrete stand with another Panzer S1 sitting on top of it. So they built 6 of these little bases and put 6 of these Panzers on top of them. Here's another one. They built a little hill for this one and a concrete pad surrounding it to put the system there. But beyond that, it's bizarre to see this. I mean, it really is wild. And it also seems like a dereliction of priorities for the Russians, because right now they are getting heavily pounded within the area of Belgrade, Crimea, and throughout the entirety of occupied Ukraine. And not only that, throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation. And instead of spreading out these air defense systems where they may actually protect major Russian industry and Russian war efforts, they decide to put a large amount of these air defenses around Putin's private residences and bunkers, which makes no sense in the long run and is stripping Russia of vital defensive efforts needed currently in their war effort. But still,
I wonder if Putin is worried that maybe in the future, maybe the near future, that the U.S. might give permission to Ukraine to expand the targeting distance for the U.S. weapons, and maybe that's why he's starting to put all this stuff around his palaces, because obviously he doesn't care about the people. It's like he just says basically screw you to the people. But you got to protect the mansion, though. That the mansion takes priority, and it seems like, considering that they don't have permission yet to strike out, I don't think that far. Do they have permission that far out yet?
I do not think so.
Yeah, maybe Putin's hedging his bets on that might change soon.
Maybe so. I would say Perhaps. I mean, I still wouldn't think that Ukraine would use an American-made weapon to attack Putin's bunkers or mansions, but possibly, maybe, and maybe he's preparing for that eventuality. Still really weird, though. It's just absolutely bizarre. But moving on from that and down into the Black Sea area around Crimea, we did get to hear, once again, that the last combat vessel of the Black Sea Fleet left port today and will never be returning. That is something that we were able to get as verifiable evidence today. And a lot of people are wondering why this has happened. And a lot of people are saying that it's actually because of a fear of Ukrainian drone boat strikes hitting the Russian Black Sea Fleet while it's sitting in port in Sevastopol, which has been a major problem in the past for the Black Sea Fleet. Others are saying that Russia has plans to attack somewhere else, and so they're just moving these ships pretty much in a pond to attack somewhere else. I'll be entirely honest with y'all before we even get to the answers. I don't really know where else they could be attacking with the Navy. It's not really like they can just sail them around the world to Antarctica or something, but, you know, still, it's an option. Others are saying that it seems like a ruse, a ruse, it looks like rouse, but a ruse or a falsehood. And others are a little bit unsure and undecided. But Matthew, what are people thinking and saying about this, and what are you thinking about the massive move by the Black Sea Fleet today to completely abandon Sevastopol, at least for combat operations?
So it looks like the vast majority of the audience, about 85 to 86% or so, said that Putin moved them because of fear of future Ukrainian drone boat strikes, which have plagued the Russian fleet in Black Sea for quite some time, while 7% said Russia plans to attack elsewhere, and 2% said, it really seems like a ruse or a falsehood. And on this one, I honestly think it is what it appears to be. I'm with the 86%. I think that simply Russia fears more attacks on these vessels. They've already suffered some significant losses in the past, and Ukraine doesn't have to spend very much money at all to develop these drone boats and also to hit these very large warships that Russia puts in the area. So I think Russia is trying to save themselves some face and also prevent more of their ships from getting destroyed. So they figured, why not just move everything out of there and try to save it and bring it back toward mainland Russia? Now, is that a guarantee it's going to be saved? Probably not, because Ukraine can, of course, hit over there as well. But they're hoping that maybe moving it away from Crimea will lower the likelihood that Ukraine will attack it in the future. But that's just my assumption. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that this is a massive move. It is showing that the Russians are not only scared of Ukrainian drone boats, they're also scared of Ukrainian ATACMS, which have already clearly proved that they can hit the Black Sea Fleet and destroy any vessels within the port, along with the Scalp EGs and Storm Shadow missiles that have been provided as well. So overall, I would have to say that from what we understand, Sevastopol is an incredibly dangerous place for the Russian Navy, and so they're trying to move these ships out of range to Novorossiysk, where at least then they're only under attack by naval drones instead of everything else that can be thrown at Sevastopol at the moment. So I would have to say they're just generally scared of Ukrainian strikes within the port of Sevastopol, and that is why they are currently not staging any more combat vessels within the area, and they're moving them all to Novorossiysk and Ochimchiri to try and preserve at least a little bit of their naval combat power going on into the future. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from that Black Sea Fleet news, and really quickly, we're going to be moving on down into Volgograd, because we actually got to see a reaction of a Volgograd resident to a strike from a Ukrainian drone in the region. We believe that this is the one at Kalachnodanu, and this footage just came out recently, so we're showing it right now, but we believe that this attack happened many days ago. But here's the clip.
Ребята, все усиливается и усиливается. Господи, что творится? Что творится? Это ужас просто. Калач содрогнул. Страшно говорить. Это ужас просто полный.
She's getting kind of emotional.
И еще объявили 5 беспилотников со стороны Волгограда летят. Это ужас просто.
She's starting to cry. I'll be dang, Matthew. She's starting to cry out here.
Man, she's losing it.
Man, she's losing it. She's tweaking, man. She's tweaking. But still, nevertheless, once again showing the Russians don't really like it being dished back at them, even when it's on military targets. But moving on from that, now the Russian Federation. It is time for us to move on really quickly all the way out into Irkutsk. Way off in the distance of Russia, way off in the Far East, actually. It's in Asia, all the way. I mean, it's literally, if we were to compare this with something inside of China, Irkutsk is exactly parallel to the city of Chongqing, or Chengdu, within the area of China. So it is incredibly far east. I mean, we're talking, this is East Asia, pretty much. But beyond that, what happened in Irkutsk is that a explosion occurred in one of the only power plants within this area of Russia. And because of that, The entire power plant went off, cutting off about 120,000 people from power. Here is a clip of the power plant while it is suffering the explosion inside of the building, but here's the clip. Sounds a little loud.
Sounds like a bad sound coming out of a power plant. I'm telling you what.
Cut the power. Erase the power.
Man, cut the power, man. It's like, what kind of noise is that? Like, I don't even know how to describe that. It's coming out of your power plant. It's definitely not a good thing.
Dude, you're just sitting out there, the power goes off, and then you just hear... Dude, it sounds like a hot dog man trying to cleanse himself. Like, I'm telling you. I don't even know what happened in the power plant. We just know that the thing blew up pretty much from the inside out. And now 120,000 people are without power in this area of Russia. So it seems as though either partisan activities are occurring or the Russians aren't even able to maintain power plants anymore, and they're starting to run into critical failures that lead to explosions and then to the entire plants being shut down. So that's very interesting to see. We'll be keeping an eye on this area of Russia and really the power grid going on in the future, because now it seems like the power grid is also running into major problems as well. But, we're not only talking about Russia, we're talking about East Asia as a whole, because East Asia, of course, is an area with constantly rising tensions, really in between the Western world and the Chinese world, or the Chinese sphere, as we would like to call it nowadays. And it seems as though that the North Koreans are continuing on with escalation severe enough that the South Koreans are once again trying to either arm themselves in defense against North Korea, or to prepare for the eventuality of armed conflict once again returning to the peninsula, which has not happened since the 1950s. But they are joining the massive leagues of nations that have been creating directed energy weapons called DEWs, or as we like to call them, laser weapons, out here in the normal world. But beyond that, South Korea is making a massive leap in laser technology, and this is something that is very interesting to hear. According to South Korea, and this is according to CNN, so this is according to South Korea and then according by CNN, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. South Korea is going to mass produce a laser-based or a directed energy weapon that will be able to take out drone-based targets at $1.50 a shot. This is actually pretty revolutionary, because the last time we heard about a directed energy weapon on this channel, it was actually, I believe it's called the Dragon's Fire from the United Kingdom, which costs about $11.50 per shot. This system costs 10 times less to operate per shot. That is absolutely crazy, a massive leap in technological abilities, and it's once again showing that the Western world is moving the way of directed energy weapons, or laser weapons, in the future. This is something...
Imagine if Ukraine could get their hands on several of those, since they're planning on mass producing those. I don't know how soon they're going to actually have those into production and also finished or finalized, but if Ukraine could get a bunch of those, that would solve all their problems with trying to get new artillery and other weapons. I know this isn't like a end-all weapon, like it's not going to be good for every application, but that would solve some of Ukraine's problems with only $1.50 a shot.
It would really be good for air defense, no doubt, especially area denial, like on the front lines. If some of these systems were placed around the front lines, you can remove all of the self-propelled anti-aircraft guns, all of the man-pads. You could get rid of all of that and start operating these systems, which are far cheaper. And as long as they were able to detect the targets and destroy them, it is self-sufficient for the large part, at least on a defensive end. Because think about it, if you can't attack this thing with an FPV drone, that means that it's practically indestructible in Ukraine. There's only a few ways that this thing would get destroyed from that point forward. If it was detected by a recon drone, and the recon drone survived long enough to give that information back to an artillery unit, and then that artillery unit started to rain down shells on top of that laser system and then destroyed it that way. That would be one way to be able to combat the laser-based, the laser weapons that could be brought to Ukraine. But it may not work that well, especially if these laser-based weapons have some sort of a high-tech radar system that can pick up even smaller drones like the Orlan or any other kind of a drone like the Lancet. the Russians may never even be able to see where this thing is to be able to destroy it. And if they're able to scoot it around a good bit, kind of like a mobile artillery system, or mount it onto the back of an 18-wheeler and just move it around kind of like a Panzer S1, this thing could be wildly effective. It would be the future of air defense, at least in Ukraine on the front lines, and if the system is further refined and honed, it could become the next generation of air defense at all. It could completely replace really any kind of air defense system we have seen if you were able to get the range and the power necessary to deal with practically any target that could be thought of. There has even been a little bit of talk in the background, and I've been reading about these laser-based weapons, and this is something that's incredibly interesting. It even is possible that with a high enough powered laser weapon in a right part of the United States, they would be able to shoot down and destroy nuclear intercontinental ballistic missiles before they were able to re-enter the atmosphere and start attacking their targets inside the United States, as long as they were able to pick them up on radar. There has been talk about that being possible, and it would be the first time in world history that an intercontinental ballistic missile could actually be intercepted and destroyed, largely with a 100% chance of destruction or a 100% chance of success, at least on the theoretical end of things, but we will have to see if that ever ends up panning into reality. But I have to say, y'all, I'm actually really excited for the future of laser-based weapons, because it is going to be the future of air defense. It may even be the future of air war, because there has been another talk that's been going on in the background, and I will tell y'all a little bit about this. There has been a little bit of a talk, because lasers are starting to become a little bit of like that magic thing that comes around, like quantum computing, Matthew, and then everyone in the world wants to throw quantum computing into everything sci-fi. Some people have actually been saying that there is a pod that could be designed for the F-35 to carry, that they can mount below the aircraft, and if anything ever tried to lock on to the F-35, if anything could, and then they fired at the F-35, the laser pod on the bottom of the aircraft, along with the F-35's radar, could detect the incoming surface-to-air missile and completely break it apart with the laser before it even got close to the F-35, being the ultimate form of surface-to-air missile defense system, at least for aircraft.
Maybe so. That's possible, man. I wonder if there's any shortcomings with that system, though, because I've seen a lot of people say here that maybe like a cloud or some rain or something might interfere with the new system there, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really well educated in that system.
Yeah, I'm not really that educated in the system either. I've just been hearing a lot of the hype talk around the laser-based weapons and what they might be able to do in the future, but it is something that has a decent bit of promise. And I've seen a lot of people saying it's something that could be happening in the future. The weapons may have a dispersion in the atmosphere. I'm not an expert, a technological expert on these weapons. I want to put that out there because I know someone's about to start cussing us out and act like they're taking a personal offense to something that I'm only talking about topically, because I'm not a rocket scientist or a nuclear scientist that knows about laser weapons. But what I do know is that it sounds like this has a lot of potential, and it's something very exciting, at least for the Western defense industries, to look into and possibly try and produce going on up into the future. But moving on.
Also, by the way, I just quickly read over something, so now I am an expert. I think the main problem will be here is how do you store enough energy, like in an aircraft? Because to my knowledge, the batteries right now are still very heavy. Like I think they've gotten better with like battery density, if that's the term for it, like putting more energy in less space and less weight. But I don't think it's quite there yet to like not have massive batteries for the type power it's going to take to probably fire a shot from that laser weapon.
Well, maybe they could just set up an F-35 to carry around the laser pod and no extra weaponry, and then have several wingmen carry the actual air-to-ground ordnance or air-to-air ordnance that's required for a mission. Because this thing could fill the role of a seed mission or a seed aircraft for the large part.
Possibly so, or they might have to actually, design a whole aircraft around it, kind of like they did with the A-10, like designing the aircraft basically around the gun. They might have to do that with a laser system.
Man, what if they did that with an F-111 Aardvark? What if they actually pulled these things back out of retirement, and then they just stripped everything from inside of them? I mean, literally everything that wasn't necessary for the laser pod, and just built it around a battery pack like that operated the laser. Yeah. Wouldn't that be weird?
That would be cool if they could pull that off.
Yeah, because actually, towards the end of the life of the Aardvark, I believe the Aardvark's only mission at that point was some kind of electronic warfare aircraft or a seed aircraft conducting anti-radiation missile missions. Let me see if I can find that really quickly, because if I remember correctly, that is what they turned into for the large part towards the end. And I'm trying to see if I can find it. These things were very common around the world, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. But the Australians and America used them, and they were practically everywhere. And I'm trying to see if we can get any information about this aircraft. And it looks as though... Oh, here we go. This is it. This is one I was actually looking for right here. And let me make sure. Yep. So this is the EF-111A Raven, which is a modified aardvark that was made for the electronic warfare role. And what it does is that it messes with pretty much everything on the electromagnetic spectrum and makes it incredibly difficult to operate ground-based air defense systems because it messes with their electronics. It was a pretty interesting idea, and I think, Matthew, that if any of these are mothballed out there and still in usable condition, they could just refit them to be able to operate a laser instead of an electronic warfare system.
It could be, and also I saw someone here, let's see, it was Bruce Lee. He said maybe they'd use a supercapacitor charged by the engine over time, so that way they wouldn't have to actually, have humongous batteries that stored all the power for all the shots. That's a very smart idea, very smart right there. Also, I saw Dan Henderson mention something about a chemical laser, which was used with a 747, he said, if he wasn't mistaken. I don't know about the chemical laser, but that's also another good idea as well, but I think the power thing might be a problem with the batteries.
Maybe so, maybe so. But with that, it is time for us to move on from the laser-based weapons story. Because we have a story for y'all that is a little bit interesting and hits a little close to home for many of our American viewers, since something happened very recently that many of y'all know about and we talked about on this channel, as there was an attempted assassination against a presidential candidate, which of course shook the news across the entire world, not only in America, and has really brought up a lot of questions about who may be these crazed gunmen, and if there is any possible involvement or interference by foreign powers attempting to try and sway the course of U.S. democracy through very illegal and criminal means for the large part. To really quickly give you all a little bit of additional information that we were able to find out, because there are a million stories going on out there right now, here is what we have so far on the assassination attempt from a while ago, and then we'll get into what we heard today, which kind of weighs in on the same topic. From what we understand, the gunman that was involved in the assassination attempt was named Thomas Matthews Crooks, a 20-year-old from the local area around where that rally occurred. From what we understand, they did not have a heavy social media presence. However, they were heavily bullied during school, and they did show up in one BlackRock commercial where they were seen actually in the local school zone. We were then able to understand that the rifle which was used was an AR-15 style rifle. The exact brand and the form of optics used on the rifle is something that I have not been able to find at the moment, but it was apparently purchased by the father and as a gift for the son, and then the son, Thomas Matthew Crooks, used it on top of the building to try and assassinate the candidate. Of course, he was killed, but from what we understand, that gunman was a lone gunman, really just a psychotic person from the local countryside that decided to try and not only attempt a death by cop for the large part, but also try and put his name down in the history books along the lines of John Wilkes Booth or Lee Harvey Oswald. However, while we're talking about a lone gunman right here, there is something very interesting to note, that we are now getting information that has been confirmed by the United States government to show that there are foreign actors, entire foreign nations, that are involved in the attempts to try and assassinate presidential candidates currently inside the United States. And according to information that we have, Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it's officially been uncovered, has plans to attempt an assassination of a U.S. presidential candidate. We are not going to be going into the exact details that these U.S. officials have announced about who that presidential candidate is or the plan and how it was going to unfold in the assassination attempt, but nevertheless, it was something that was very concerning today, especially considering that we saw a unsuccessful assassination attempt occur on a presidential candidate a few days ago. It now seems as though foreign operators, foreign nations like the Islamic Republic of Iran, are attempting to put state resources behind an attempt on another presidential candidate here in the United States. And it's once again showing that brutal dictators and thugs around the world are the only kind of people who step into a democratic process like a presidential election here in the United States and attempt to conduct an assassination against targets here. A lot of people have been talking about what's happened inside of Iran, or what the major news has happened inside of Iran today. And a lot of people are believing that these kinds of actions are once again showing the deplorable states and activities that these kinds of nations delve into, and once again giving us an idea that these nations are, of course, not at all interested in America's interests, like some people for some reason want to believe. They are enemies of the United States, without a doubt, and should be treated as such well on into the future. But
if they're able to corroborate that intel, though, that indeed Iran has put out a plot or a hit or a contract or whatever you want to call it on a presidential candidate in the United States, I don't know about everybody else, but to me, that sounds like an act of war. At that point, I would say if that's confirmed 100%, obviously make sure we confirm it, because we've gone to the Middle East before on sort of unconfirmed information. We don't want to repeat that again. But if it's confirmed, I would say it's about time to let Iran feel the heat. Because that's going way too far. Obviously, they just got done attacking Israel a while back, and luckily nobody got seriously injured, I don't think, in that. Israel was able to shoot down most of the incoming missiles, and largely it was a failure on Iran's part. But Iran's getting way out of hand. They're joining the axis of evil with China, Russia, North Korea, and the rest of them. And now they're trying to assassinate someone in U.S. politics, which is like crossing a huge red line that you don't do. So at some point, someone's going to have to put their foot down on Iran.
I would have to agree completely, and it is very wild to see something like this be confirmed and then nothing is really done about it. Now, it's one thing to know that countries around the world that are rivals of each other are always wanting to see the demise of the other's leaders. That is something that is always going on. But knowing that this is coming right off of the cusp of an attempted assassination attempt that failed, and now we're seeing that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now trying to once again ramp up and attempt a possible another assassination attempt. Also, by the way, I don't know if y'all have heard this today, but outside of one of the political conventions that's currently being held in the United States, a would-be assassin, from what we understand, was also shot outside of that building today, and currently, from what we understand, is still alive and being detained by authorities in the local area. It is starting to show that this is becoming a major concern, at least for the United States, as this is a matter of national security and security of our democracy, as it seems as though the presidential candidates at the moment may be under great peril and danger, not only from lone maniacs inside of the United States, but possible state actors outside of the country as well, including the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I believe that we need to start showing a more resolute sign that democracy cannot be changed or altered in underhanded ways like this, because foreign nations would want to see a different result in internal domestic elections here inside the United States. But nevertheless, a very interesting thing to note, and of course, some people are going to say that we're getting into politics just talking about attempted assassinations against presidential candidates. I want to make it very clear, we are not picking a side here on who we support or who we condemn here in American politics. I'm making a general statement about national security interests and protecting both candidates, so that way the citizenry of the United States and the nation has its ability to choose who it would like to lead the country here in this upcoming election. That is incredibly important. While it may be something, depending on the policies of these candidates, that some people would or would not support, it is still wildly beneficial to allow the people to have their say and elect who they would like to be their leader, whether the decisions, in your opinion, are good or not. That is how democracy works. That's how it will always work. And of course, the Lee Spring Army is dedicated to the ideas of supporting Western principles. And the most important principle that the West has been able to promote and support through hundreds of years is that of self-determining governments and democratic forms of governmental systems, which the United States has. And of course, that means that the Lee Spring Army is heavily invested in the protection of that form of a more so political system, and we would like to see that all candidates involved would be safe from harm. But moving on from that and into the Russian Federation, we've been able to get a really interesting statement today from the Russians. A whole lot of people have noted that Russia has issued a reward for anyone anyone out there, even just some random Joe Blow from Russia with a 12-gauge shotgun, if they can shoot down an F-16, there will be a reward issued to that person. It seems as though they really want to get their hands on some of that sweet F-16 juju juice that helps to keep that plane flying and running, and figure out what in the world can they do, or what in the world can they implement in their own Air Force based off of F-16 technology. Although that technology, to be quite honest, that Ukraine will be getting is wildly outdated, the Russians would still like to get a hold of it. And a lot of people are wondering, will the Russians really put a lot of effort into trying to shoot one of these F-16s down and praying that they can get their hands on some of the tech after it ends up crashing and burning in a field somewhere over occupied territory? And it seems as though a lot of people are really on board with the idea that the Russians are going to focus heavily on these jets. But Matthew, what are people thinking? Do they think that they're actually going to focus a lot on these jets and try and shoot one down, or something else? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so now that we've gotten confirmation that Russia has indeed issued a reward for anyone that shoots down an F-16, the big question is, will Russia focus on destroying the new F-16 jets in Ukraine? 62%, the majority, said yes, they will focus on that. 22% said no, Russia will just hope to get one eventually. And 12% said possibly, but only time will tell. And for me, I'm definitely in the 62%. I think Russia is going to make the F-16 a priority target. And the goal for Russia will not be to shoot down every F-16, because they probably won't be able to do that. But their goal is to shoot down at least one of them for a couple of reasons. It'll be a huge propaganda victory, and also they'll hope to maybe get their hands on the wreckage and maybe bring that back in, so maybe they can send it over to their friends in China to check it out, or maybe they can check it out themselves if they have the capability. But also, by the way, if you're the lucky Russian who happens to catch the F-16 and shoot it down, you'll get a whopping 15 million rubles. And I actually thought that was like the equivalent to a Russian hamburger earlier, but actually it's a small fortune. So I can't remember, I think it's like 150,000 USD or something like that. So, and here, make this comparison as well. If a Russian soldier dies in Ukraine, they might be lucky to get some water park tickets or a sack of potatoes. That's the post-death benefit that the family gets from a dead soldier. Meanwhile, though, if you're a Russian that shoots down an F-16, you're getting 150 grand. That's how stark the difference is here between the two priorities. But besides that, I'm with the 62%. But Enforcer, what say you?
Excuse me, brother. You are unfortunately mistaken. It is not 150,000 US dollars. No. It is actually 170,000 US dollars.
Oh,
dearie.
boy.
Oh my goodness, we are talking Goldman Sachs levels of wealth here. Goodness.
But beyond that, to answer that question, the Russians are probably going to focus on shooting down this jet exorbitantly. I mean, I really do think they will, because they want that jet. They need to get one of these jets, because if one of them crashes, and even just some of the electronic components remain intact for them to be able to inspect, they are going to get a fairly good idea that they've never gotten so far, by the way, on how an F-16 actually works. They don't even know how the earlier versions of them work, like the F-16A or the F-16C, which is largely what Ukraine's going to be getting here in the near future. They don't even have a clue how those work, so even getting their hands on just some of the electronic components in those aircraft will give them a good idea of how the F-16 works, possibly allow them to implement that technology into future Russian aircraft if they ever even make any more, or it will allow them to figure out the inherent weaknesses of an F-16, or at least the older versions of the F-16 before those problems were fixed, if they ever were. That is probably what the Russians want to find out about the F-16. I actually think they're going to put a lot of effort into trying to shoot one of these things down, because they would like to try and know a lot about how it works, and gives them a little bit of a better idea about how the West would perform in an all-out war. Although, to be entirely honest, it's not going to give them that great of an idea, because the F-16s that they are being given, at least technologically, are almost 1980s vintage. They're almost 40 years old at this point, or at least 40 years old technologically. So it's not showing them what a modern F-16 would be capable of in the U.S. Air Force. It's not really showing them what a modern aircraft is capable of in the U.S. Air Force or the U.S. military at this point, or the Western world as a whole, but at least it would give them a little bit of an idea, a little bit of an inkling of what they might be facing, or at least give them a massive propaganda victory, because Well, when I say massive propaganda victory, let me make that a caveat really quickly, because when I say that, it would be big for the Russians. It wouldn't really be big for us. I'm telling y'all, I'm putting money on it. An F-16 is going to get shot down, and it's probably not going to be that much longer after they're introduced into Ukraine and they're actually flying. Maybe a couple of weeks, maybe a few months, one of them will get shot down. And the Russians are going to make it out to be a huge ordeal. They're going to be going, oh, bled, the great Western F-16. Everyone claimed invincible. We shut it down. You know, they're going to be doing something like that. Russian technology simply cannot be beat. We lose 100 T-90s, but we shut one F-16 down. Blessing from God? Yes. That's what they're going to be doing. I will put money on it. Because also, another thing that I would like to put out is many of y'all will know, and this is something that Matthew and me got a huge laugh out of. Matthew and me watched the current president of the United States. Many of y'all will know about this, and I just want to put this out there as an example. Say that the president of Ukraine was President Putin, not President Zelenskyy. Many of y'all heard that. Everyone kind of heard that. But that's not really the point to go and blast anything about that. The point is, though, is to say that as soon as I heard that that was said, Matthew told me about it, and I said to him, oh, you know, Matthew, that the Russian propagandists are about to take that and go to town on that. I said, they're about to sit there and say, oh, it was a Freudian slip, because he knows that he's supposed to be the president of Ukraine, but he can't admit it.
And they did.
Yeah, but he can't admit it because the shadow government won't let him or something like that. And then he said that, and then literally within like 15 minutes, a propagandist literally said that word for word, because that's how it works. And so if the Russians can shoot down an F-16, they are going to go ham on how they shot that thing down. Forget that they lost 2 Su-57s that got blown up by a simple drone that cost a few $1,000s. Forget that the Russians have lost almost every single T-90M that's ever been put in Ukraine. Forget that every single weapon system, every single piece of equipment that the Russians have brought into Ukraine of every kind has ended up getting destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces. Forget all of that. This one F-16 has been shot down, and therefore the world is shit. Everyone sucks. The Russians are the only ones who have the best military tech. No one can top them. Get the hell out of here. That is exactly how the Russian propaganda is going to go. Because that's how it went with the Abrams. I mean, the Abrams went over there, and I said, oh, look at that. I said, it's not going to do well. Things going to get hit. Things going to, get knocked out. I said it's going to be a great tank. Sure, it's better than what Ukraine has, but it's not going to be invincible. It's not going to be legendary, like some people are pointing it out to be. And then it got blown up, and then all the Russian propagandists went, the Abrams is not invincible, like the Wicked West said. It's like, who said it was invincible? It's like, hasn't anyone seen all of the destroyed Abrams in Iraq fighting ISIS? I mean, they lost a lot of them because they're not invincible. Like, it's a good tank, but if you end up getting in a bad situation, whether someone pops off a lucky shot, it will get destroyed. It's just like there's no unsinkable ship. There's no indestructible tank, or unshootable airplane. You will be able to get them all eventually, like Pokemon. But beyond that, a lot of people, loads of people, are talking about something that is so interesting today. It's today. It's today, Matthew. That was today. And it's time to talk about it. It's an important thing to talk about. Many people will know that today is July 16th of 2024. Crazily enough, 79 years ago today, on July 16th of 1944, the first atomic bomb was tested in the Trinity explosion, or I believe that's what it was called, Mandy. The Trinity test. It was the Trinity test under the Manhattan Project. But that was the first time that the power of the atom was used to create a weapon of war. And then the year after that, which means we're still a year away, it'll be 79 years ago today, next year, that the first atomic bomb was dropped in warfare. But beyond that, it began a catalyst of the weirdest time in world history, where mankind has actually been able to create a weapon that would destroy civilization as we know it. During no other time of history has that ever been possible, but within 15 minutes, the entire northern hemisphere can end up becoming an absolute hellscape unrecognizable to the modern person. because of these weapons that were made. And a lot of people have been talking about this, and a lot of people have been saying how the next world war will go if it ever breaks out. And of course, the Cold War always looked like the world was on the verge of world war. It always looked like nuclear weapons were almost on the verge of being used pretty much every single year. But at the end of the Cold War, and from 1991 onwards, it's never really seemed that a nuclear war or a major world war would ever really happen. For most of that time after the collapse of the Soviet Union, China was hardly even an emerging power, economically or militarily. They were just some big country that was kind of interesting and filled with a whole bunch of commie weirdos. And then the Russian Federation and the rest of the breakup of the Soviet Union, hell, they were in the dark ages. I mean, people were getting mugged outside of their apartments by guys in balaclavas and Adidas tracksuits, so no one really cared what was going on up there, and no one really thought that a major world war would break out with that kind of a situation going on. But nowadays, things are looking a little different. With a major war happening right now in Eastern Europe and the possibility of it turning into a full-blown conventional war amongst NATO and the Russian Federation, and then also on top of that, inside of China, China is now a serious and major economic power that is rapidly growing militarily by the year. A lot of people believe that that kind of an unstable world that could create a nuclear conflict or a major world war may be possible. And a lot of people are starting to wonder, would it be possible that a next world war, a major conflict, will involve nuclear arms? That's, of course, even been a conversation in the current Ukraine war, whether nuclear arms would be used inside of Ukraine. But a lot of people have been saying many different things about this, and this is actually one of the most controversial questions that we have asked y'all due to the split of answers that all of y'all have given. Every single one of y'all has a bit of a different input on this and believes that it may be possible, may not be possible, won't be possible at all. But everyone is on a different page. And Matthew, what are people saying, and what are you thinking about the possibility of the next major conflict involving nuclear arms?
All right, so like the Enforcer said, 79 years ago to date, the first atomic bomb was tested at the Trinity test, and the big question is, will the next major war involve nukes? 37% said possibly, but rather unlikely, while 31% said yes, nukes will definitely be involved, and at 25% said no, nukes will simply not be involved. And if y'all do recall, in World War II, the bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and also Nagasaki basically brought an end to that situation with Japan. So the atomic bombs have been used before, and hopefully they'll never be used again. But the question here is, will World War III, or the next major war, when it eventually breaks out, will it involve nuclear weapons? And honestly, in my opinion, I would say yes. Probably not the massive ones like the world-ending nuclear weapons. Probably not those. But I think we might see the use of tactical weapons eventually rear its head up and be used by countries in sort of limited fashions. I know it sounds kind of weird to say use a nuke in a limited fashion, but I think there might be some future push in maybe a next major war to use them as, I guess quote unquote tactical nukes. If you could really say it that way. It's really not tactical with a nuke, but it is what it is. So I'm with the 30%. I think it will happen, unfortunately, but hopefully it won't be too bad. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that the next major war will probably involve nuclear weapons, but that's why people avoid the next major war so fervently, or at least that's why most people avoided major war so fervently up until now. That's why people believe that nuclear war may be on the horizon, is because many of the at least major nuclear powers, I wouldn't call them economic or military powers like the Russians, they look like they're possibly going to start using nuclear weapons in the future. Well, getting major conventional wars in the future where that would be a possibility. And that's what people are getting really concerned about. I would have to say, without a shadow of a doubt, a major conventional war, if it ever started to compromise the security of any of the major powers, they would start to use nuclear weapons. Of course, tactical nukes first, but it would move on into intercontinental exchanges that would pretty much be Armageddon at that point. But in my opinion, I would say yes. But that's generally why so many countries, including the United States, are so adamant about trying to avoid major wars that involve the major nuclear powers. Because it pretty much is an inevitable certainty that if those wars break out, considering the concept of total victory and total war that is emphasized nowadays, it would most likely lead to a full-on nuclear exchange by one way or another. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, I'm telling you. And with that, it is time for us to move on from that little question segment and on into the rest of our news, because we got a lot of it. We got loads of it. And so moving on from that and on into our location unknowns, we actually got to see a new FPV drone that has been made by a company called Donostar. I don't know a lot about this company, but they have made this drone, and it is called the Mouse. This thing is apparently going to be given to Ukraine, and they're going to be able to use it on the front lines. It can carry kind of like any other drone can, RPGs, any kind of warheads they like to carry on the bottom of the drones. It just generally looks like it's going to be a cheap and inexpensive FPV drone to use. Pretty cool to see, and I gotta say, we like it. We want to see more of it. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see some Ukrainians on their way to the front, specifically a tank crew, as that bussin' music starts playing. And we can see them riding along here. Of course, we can't play the music. We see them walking around. Just kind of backing that thing up on into that tree line. Oh, dude, look, they got a bobcat on the night vision cover right there. All right, that one might have fallen flat. But we can see them backing up into the trees. We can see them now showing the inside of the tank here. We now see them showing the inside. You can actually see the coaxial machine gun right there. See him waving right there. And that's the end of the clip. But really interesting to see and good to know that these Ukrainian crew members are moving along wherever they are and doing whatever they do. Moving on from that, we got to see a brand new Ukrainian drone once again as well. We don't know a lot about this one, but this one was presented by the Wild Hornets. Check it out. Sally, I think I'm going to have to mute that, but there is the drone. It is a new drone, as the video suggests. Look at that thing. That thing be juicy. The Queen Hornet. We see them lugging that thing out. It's actually pretty big.
Damn, yeah, that's actually sizable. That's an FPV drone?
Apparently so.
That's crazy. 7 inches? Wait, okay, there's a 15-inch. I was about to say, there's no way that was 7 inches.
An 18-kilogram takeoff weight. That thing can actually carry a lot. But what is the range? Oh, look at it, doing a flip.
Oh, look, they put the Ukraine Trident on the motherboard. That's nice.
Man, nice. Sick. We see them showing off a little bit more of it. Dropping off a bomb, dropping it on some tanks. Apparently, they've had this thing in use for a little bit now. And they put kamikaze out there. That means divine wind in Japanese, if you didn't know. But we see them carrying another 9-kilogram case and a drone carrier to drop off even a smaller drone to finish the mission. And it has a range, at least for the radio, of 25 kilometers, which is actually incredibly far for these kinds of drones. And we can see here, once again, them manufacturing these things in scale. And I'm blowing them away. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Really nice to see from the Wild Hornets, the Queen Hornet. Of course, in production now, and available to regiments near you. Moving on from that, we also got to see Ukrainian D-20 in action in the middle of that summer heat. And woo, is it hot. Over there in Ukraine, y'all wouldn't believe it. It is a blistering, heat stroke inducing 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Today down here in the beautiful state of Alabama where we live in Birmingham, it was about 100 degrees. But here's the clip. We see them here operating that D-20.
Is that dude in his underwear?
Man, he is, man. It's hot out there.
Yeah.
You judge it?
Eugene.
Oh, and they got it loaded. And they fired.
Damn, man, I scooted away from that thing fast.
Man, they went skirt. And then that thing recooled hard enough to kill. And we now see them reloading.
David Aldana in the live chat said, I only understand Celsius. Oh, come on, man. Come on, Jack. You gotta understand Fahrenheit. Come on.
If you don't understand Fahrenheit, then you'll understand this. It was hot as hell today. But with that, it was hot. It was real hot. I mean, it was like 40 degrees Celsius, maybe even 50 degrees Celsius today. You know, just throwing around casual death-inducing numbers right there. But we can see them continuing to reload and fire their little D20, and that's the end of the clip. But hey, they got to stay cool, folks. They got to. But moving on from that, we also got the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours, and it was high.
Oh! No. Man, why is this casualty report so juicy? This is like a T-bone steak that the Russians will never have. 8 Bobcats, that's tremendous to see. Also, it's always above 1,000 troops these days. Just crazy.
Man, I'm telling you what, it's crazy. 8 Bobcat skid steers absolutely obliterated, along with 1,100 Russian soldiers wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 36 APCs, 57 supply trucks, 13 main battle tanks, 44 artillery systems, 45 UAVs, and 8 Bobcat skid steers. Overall, the numbers were pretty high, and it looks as though the Russians do be suffering. And also, I like to see the bots over here. The guy who writes this must say to themselves sometimes, how long can we sustain this comedy? Who the hell
that
is
sounds
this?
like stuff we're told in the comments. That's like the comments of my video today. Like some of them, like I would say 5 to 10% were like that. Just like, man, this Joker's been saying the same thing for months. It's like, no, actually, the Black Fleet withdrawing, that's actually pretty new, buddy.
Yeah, and also, man, you look at this. Bringing light to forgotten stories one by one. Your daily dose of news and insights from Lagos in Nigeria.
Lagos?
Yeah, from Lagos in Nigeria. Right there.
Man, you know, Legos have gotten expensive. Oh, Lagos.
Lagos.
Lagos? Man,
Yeah.
you talking about Lagos or you talking about Lagos?
Man, that's Lagos if I remember correctly. Let me type that thing
I'm
in.
joking around.
Man, hell, man, you got me typing it in now. I can't back out now. Once the bombers are on their way, there's no way to call them back. I'm telling you what. Why the hell did I put in Laos? It's Lagos. All right. Well, there's only videos on it. I ain't listening to the videos. Whatever. But beyond that, I got to tell y'all something. I don't know if a news source from Nigeria would be unbiased on that perspective. I'm not going to lie to y'all, because it seems as though most of the voices that are in support of Russia usually come from bot farms from Africa or India. I'm not going to lie. That's usually what we see. Or they are Russian bot farms run by the Russians themselves. But anyways, moving on.
Hey, I'm correct. Hey, look, listen, I'll admit, I'm not often right on pronunciations and stuff. I was, like, seriously just joking around. I was going to say Lagos just to be funny, but actually, for once, I'm right on the pronunciation. It's Lagos on this one. I was thinking when you said Legos, I was like, Legos? I'm not sure if that's right. That sounds a little Danish, but I think this is Lagos.
I said Lagos, not Legos. But let me go type it in. Lagos pronunciation. So let's see here. How do you pronounce, let's see here. Lagos, as it is Portuguese for lakes. But let's see here. How to pronounce. Here we go.
We are looking at how to pronounce these names, as
You
well
scare
as how
me,
to
man.
say more interesting but often confusing country names and names from geography.
Yes.
City names that many get wrong, so make sure to stay tuned to the channel if you enjoy learning.
You're scaring me.
Lagos.
Legos, dude, it's Legos. He said it.
Who is this guy? What's his credentials?
I don't know, but he scares me.
He scares me too, man.
Hello, everyone. Today, we're going to be talking about how to pronounce my hometown's name. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon. Link in the description below. Birmingham.
It's like, dude, you scare me, man. Like, it's like, keep away from my kids. It's like you scare me, man. But anyways, it's Lagos. It's not Lagos. It's Lagos. I got it right, man. I'm telling you. I was scared there for a minute. I was like, no way I said Lagos and it's Lagos. Like, I think they called it Lagos in Call of Duty, but then again, man, they said, be quiet. And then they said, I'm an effing onion, Mason. So I don't really know if their voice actors know what they're doing, but beyond.
Man, you pulled up the random voice translator from like like I don't know, like I don't know who the guy is. I'm not trying to like bash him, just being funny. So like the third rate kind of like translator guy to find the translation you were looking for. Man, I don't know if I'd trust that guy. Maybe he might be an expert if I looked into him or something, but the voice has me thrown off a little bit.
Hello, everyone.
It's like, dude, stop. It's like, please, man, you're creeping me out. Dude, I would hate, dude, imagine you were in a bar, okay, or something. We don't go to bars, so that's really foreign to you and me, but imagine you're like out in a public place or something, and you just are sitting there minding your own business, looking down your phone, and you look up and you just got this guy like right in your face just with this weird smile, and he goes,
Hello. Welcome back to the club. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And support us on Patreon. Link in the description below. Beer.
it's like, dude, what the hell's wrong with you? But anyways, moving on from that and that bot, it's time for us to move on from the Russian casualty report and on into the news at large. We got loads of it. I'm telling you what. And we got a lot up there in the Vovchansk area. But before we get to this, though, I do have to note something. I gotta say, I thank you all so much for hanging with us tonight. Our viewership is quite low, I'm not gonna lie, because usually we get about 8,000 viewers, 9,000 live viewers at a peak. Tonight, I think we've only gotten up to about close to 5. Like, it's actually the highest we've gotten up to is 4.8 thousand live viewers. Of course, many of y'all know why that's the case. There's another big event going on here in the United States. It's a national convention of a sort. I think a lot of people are off watching that tonight instead of here watching this. But nevertheless, we're still happy to have all of y'all here with us tonight, and I hope y'all have been enjoying the news so far, because we've been trying really hard to make sure that the news production is as high quality as it is on other days, because it doesn't matter how many people really are here at the end of the day. It just matters that we're able to get the news out to all the folks who want to come here and listen to it. And so we're entirely appreciative and so thankful that even 4.8 thousand of y'all showed up here at the peak tonight, because, that's pretty wild in its own right. We actually expected that hardly anyone would show up. But with that, Matthew, I understand that we actually got a couple of questions here, and what do we got?
All right, so our first question here is actually not a question, but a huge shout out to Andy L, who threw in a combined $40 support tonight and supporting our work. And Andy always supports the work, and we greatly appreciate that. And a huge shout out to Andy for doing it once again. And sadly, no comment to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much once again, Andy L, for that incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this thing possible day in and day out. And while there may not be many people here today, it is solely about making sure just to get the news out to each and every one of y'all that is here and watching. And we are, of course, entirely appreciative of folks like you watching this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And so with that, I thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. And while you didn't throw in a comment, the support does say a lot. Also, really quickly, folks, while I brought up the reason why our viewership is low, once again, let me remind everyone, for the 874th day in a row, that does not mean that that is your chance to start bashing a political group. This channel has a no politics rule. I hate to sound really firm on this and also maybe standoffish, but I always see a few people, 1 or 2 people who have been here really for the entire history of this channel and know our stance on the no politics rule and then want to take it as, oh, it's my chance to shit on someone. We do not allow that here for either side. So if you want to do that, you can take it somewhere else, but it's not going to be on this channel. That is one thing I can guarantee 100%. The no politics rule doesn't just extend to Matthew and me. That extends as a channel rule. We do not allow people to make political comments supporting or condemning one party or another, or one political group or another in this chat. We simply do not allow that. We do not allow that on our end, on a reporting level. It adds nothing more than strife and combat to something that largely everyone's united on, which is support to Ukraine and support of Western interests around the globe. So I hate to throw that in, but I saw that after I made the mention that our viewership was low for a specific reason, some people want to take it upon themselves to be the warriors that they know they are, the political champions, and start throwing out what they believed about the thing that's going on that everyone else is probably watching. That's not what we're here for. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And if you appreciate our no politics stance here on this channel, put an LSA in the chat. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Howard Turgell, who's also a longtime channel legend as well, and huge shout out to Howard for throwing in a $35 support. Always supporting the channel as well, and we appreciate it very much to Howard. He says, it's Taco Tuesday, and take a question from the chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support, Howard Turgell, and thank you so much for supporting this wonderful, magical Taco Tuesday. It's a wonderful day to be back. We love to be back running this show. And I gotta say, a huge thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to have Taco Tuesdays, and we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running if it wasn't for all the folks who enjoyed it enough to support it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Howard Turgell. Thank you for supporting that wonderful, delicious Taco Tuesday. And I really could go for some tacos right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving back into the news.
All right, so real quick, Howard did request a live chat question, so we'll grab that one real quick. And this live chat question, is going to go to guess who? Howard Turgell. He said, do U.S. tanks have a blow-up trigger when abandoned by its crew when it's no longer mobile?
I do not believe so. I don't really believe any tank has that built into them. The M1A1 Abrams, which is the one that Ukraine actually got. Let me see if I can go get this here. So this is an M1A2. I'm trying to see if I can find you all the M1A1. This is actually, by the way, this is the prototype for the first M1. Doesn't it look really different than the actual modern Abrams? I mean, the barrel is 105. It's not 120 like it is nowadays. The turret profile was actually a lot smaller back then than it is now because they didn't have to make room for the 120 millimeter main gun to elevate and depress. But let's see here. Let me see if I can show y'all. Here's an early production Abrams. Jeez. Like, that's pretty different.
Man, that is different. Wait a minute, you're saying this is the Abrams?
Yes, this is an M1 Abrams. This is one of the first ones in service.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you gotta start off somewhere. They always say the first generation of anything is always a little bit rough. Goodness, like, yikes. I'm not gonna make fun of it, but it's a little bit rough.
I would say it's pretty rough. Also, one thing I gotta say, thank you so much to NATO for moving on from national camouflages, because the MERDC camouflage that you're seeing right here is hideous. Like, that looks terrible. I'm glad that we changed that out to NATO tricolor SARC in the future, because this looks horrendous.
Yeah, it looks pretty rough, man. It looks like maybe like a 10-year-old might have done it.
Yeah, I would have to agree. But let me see here. Also, look, man, this is the Anniston Army Depot back in 1989, refurbishing Abrams.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Man, that's a very like industrial looking workshop. Like it's very cool, like a good old days.
Man, it's really cool. I'm telling you what. Yeah. Also, look, here's a destroyed M1A1 back from the Gulf War. And let's see here. Oh, look, there's an M1A1 at Waco. What's going on back there? Who knows? But anyways, that's an M1A1 Abrams right there. And what's interesting about the M1A1 Abrams, to answer your question, is that I do not believe that it has a self-destruct system, because I don't believe I've ever heard a story from any kind of a situation where an Abrams was disabled and abandoned by its crew, where they ended up self-destructing the tank, like where they just pushed a button and the whole thing blew up. I think some people tried to destroy their tanks, but then again, you know, they only destroy them as much as the ammo inside of them can, because it's not like they're just carrying around a massive bomb in there, so that way when the time comes they can blow it up, because usually you just don't plan on tanks getting lost where you have to blow them up like that. So I would have to say no, I don't think there's a self-destruct button in any of that, any of the Abrams series, or any tanks for that matter. I think that's something that the crew either just never does, or if they try to do, they just end up blowing up the ammunition inside of the tank. And then even then with the Abrams, that would pretty much be impossible to cause any real damage to the tank, because the blowout panel would deliberately have to be left open, and that means you'd have to be inside the tank blowing up the ammo, which means that you would get killed in the process. So I don't think there's an actual easy way to self-destruct an Abrams. You pretty much just have to abandon the tank and pray that it doesn't fall into enemy hands, which I don't think the United States ever would let one fall into enemy hands on our own, but, you know, some other countries have let it happen, like Iraq and also Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And let me see here if I can get you all another picture of an M1A1. Oh, look, here's another one.
That's a classic.
classic, man. That's a hood classic right there. But let me see here if I can find a picture of it in NATO tricolor Sark. This is the Australian camo, actually, for the Abrams, which doesn't look that bad, but I'm not really that big of a fan, to be honest.
Nah, I'm not that big of a fan of it either. It looks a little too basic. I think I like ours better.
Yeah, I wish I could find one that isn't in Desert Tan, man. Where in the world is it? So let me see if I can find the Sark camo. There's got to be a picture of it somewhere. I mean, here's one. You can kind of see the Sark camo on the side, but I really want to get a good picture of it. Oh.
Mr. Magoo said, how would you know if camouflage is genuinely good if you don't get hit?
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. Camouflage is considered good if it breaks up the form of a vehicle, because camouflage isn't supposed to make you completely invisible. M1 Abrams Sark. Let me just go get that. So here we go. Here's an M1 Abrams. This actually looks like an M1A1 in Sark tricolor. And this one appears to be braking really hard because you can see the suspension is straining towards the front. But beyond that, this is a tricolor Sark camo. And the whole point behind the camouflage is that it's supposed to break up the form of the vehicle. It doesn't really work that much when you're moving because you kind of distinguish your form against the background by moving, so camouflage doesn't really matter all too much. But when you're stationary, however, like in a prone firing position or something along those lines, it makes it a little bit more difficult, just a little bit more difficult for the enemy to be able to see you. And so camouflage is measured in how much does your form get broken up against the background by the camouflage, and how difficult is it for you to see that person in that case. Let me go actually get y'all one. Let's see. Camouflage test. Let me see if I can find y'all a picture of this. So, pictures like these right here. Let me see if I can find the person really quickly to show y'all this. Oh, actually, let me go to another one where I might be able to find the person a little bit quicker. So, camouflage tests. Dang, man, they don't really have a lot of pictures of camouflage tests. So I'll show you all this one that I have right here. For the Marine Corps times, this is a specific kind of a camouflage that is made, I believe, for special recon elements in the Marines. I'm not entirely sure, but this would be something where you go, okay, that broke him up kind of good against the form. Like, we're up close to the guy and we can see him in this picture, but if you're 50 yards away looking into the woods, you probably would not notice this guy, even with the black rifle right there in his hands. Also, Matthew, that is literally an M4A1 with a Trejicon ACOG right there. That is literally the kind of M4 that we have.
I love to see it, man. I've got a classic, a hood classic certified.
Man, I'm telling you, man, certified hood classic. But let's see here. Here's some guy testing a camo pattern. I don't think he's testing it that well because there's like a bright green tree behind him. But, you know, it is what it is. And then there's this picture right here. This person likes to look down at the ground. But beyond that, that is how the camouflage kind of works. So that's how you qualify if a camouflage is good or not. But nowadays, camouflage is not just for what you can visibly see with the naked eye, it's also for what you can see on the infrared spectrum, because a lot of vehicles emanate a great deal of heat. And so even with camouflage patterns, in an infrared sight, it does not matter, because the infrared doesn't see the camouflage pattern, it just sees heat. And so nowadays, people are trying to figure out how to find ways to camouflage a vehicle's heat signature. And that's why they've come up with the Barracuda camouflage, I believe, net, if I'm correct, which is produced by Saab. And let me see if I can show you all a picture of this on a vehicle. And let me see here. You want to see, Matthew, a Leopard 2 that looks like you're going to sip lemonades out under the sun?
Let's see it.
This one.
Oh wow, that's like the like what do they call it, a resort tank or something like that. This is like the what the hell's that name? What's that like water park they have down in the Atlantic or the Bahamas or something like that?
Atlantis.
It's the Atlantis of tanks. Look at that. Protection on the go.
Man, you get up in that little umbrella up there on top of the tank as the commander, and the gunner's like, hey, is it fun up there? Ooh, it's fun. I sip a lemonade. It's just a fun time up here. I'm telling you what. But this is also what it looks like on other vehicles. I believe that's actually a Nemera, if I'm correct. I can't really tell for certain, so don't take my word on that. But that's what it looks like. And this camo pattern is supposed to break up the infrared signature at least a little bit and make it a little bit more difficult to identify a vehicle off of its heat signature, which is pretty cool. But anyways, moving on from that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support, Howard Tugel, and sponsoring your own live chat question. That was a really good one. And I thank you once again for helping this channel to be possible and helping us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the Frontline news.
All right, and our last one is going to go to, once again, Andy L., who threw in another support, this time a $50 donation. So a combined $90 support from Andy L. Once again, huge shout out to you, Andy, for that support and helping to keep the channel running. And since there's no comment addressed on this one right here that we can address, I just want to say a big reminder and thank you to everyone as well. On Sunday, we were able to double the fundraiser goal. We put the goal at $3,000 for our Sunday fundraiser, and it ended up getting somewhere above $6,000. So just wanted to remind everyone of that, and also thank everyone once again for helping us to reach that goal, because once again, we can't understate how much that means to Ukraine, and also how much it means to us to be able to raise that much money every single Sunday for Ukraine. So just remembered that in my head and wanted to say it. But huge shout out to Andy and also the LSA. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to give a huge shout out to Andy L as well, and the entirety of the Lee Spring Army for the amazing work we did on that Sunday fundraiser. But still, thank you massively once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Andy L, the support is huge and helps us to be able to make this channel possible. If it wasn't for folks like you, Andy L, one of the few viewers who support this channel, we wouldn't be able to make this stream ad-free and sponsor-free for everyone else who watches. We are wildly appreciative of every single person who gets to support this channel and help it to keep on running, because y'all don't have to, but nevertheless y'all do. And y'all help us to be able to make this possible to do as a job, and y'all make it possible for so many other people to be able to get their news each and every day on what's happening inside of Ukraine. And so with that, thank you so much once again for that massive, incredible support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're going to be moving on out of this question segment and on up into the area of Vovchansk, because we got to see that a Perun unit drone blew up a BMD today. Check it out. It looks like it already got hit.
Ooh,
but look
man,
at that.
That was a fast hit right there. We didn't even see the prelude to it hardly.
Man, well, we just saw it right there. And bada boom, baby.
Oh,
bada boom. That thing blew up. And it's cooking. Oh, a little ammo explosion.
A little aftershock.
Man, that was my head right there when I saw that no hit piece had been made by the hot dog man yet. It's been like 3 days. I've been waiting for that hit piece. Waiter, another hit piece.
Man, the haters are getting lackadaisical out here. They need to get on the ball, man. Like, how can we have haters that are slacking like this? It's like, come on. It's not our job to tell the haters to get on their job. They need to do it on their own. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work.
Man, I'm telling you, man, I've never seen lazy haters before. I've never seen a lazy hater. But now we have lazy haters. Where is our hit piece? I want the hit piece. Back in the day, I'll not lie, I was actually a little scared of hit pieces. Nowadays, I find them to be a good form of evening entertainment. So where the hell is my hit piece? I want my hit piece. Y'all need to go over there and tell the crack-addicted hot dog man to go make one, because I'm getting bored over here. But moving on from that, we did get to see a Avdiivka, or Guzzi. You know what? We saw the thing. We got to see one provided by Poland being used by the 41st Mechanized Brigade. Look at her go. And it's still got that Polish tricolor camo on it. Pretty cool. But with that, we moving on from that clip, and we moving on over to Avdiivka, where we got to see that a brand new Russian SPG, the Malva, with a 152mm gun, is pretty much the Russian version of the Bodana, ended up getting knocked out by an ATACMS missile. Well, actually a HIMARS, I believe. Yeah, it was a HIMARS missile, an M30, but boo-hoo-hoo, look at it. All tires are deflated, it's like a sad little pudding. They put some kind of a camo wrap on the thing. I don't know what this is supposed to be.
Man, that's that's AstroTurf or something. That's not even a camo wrap. That's just straight up fake turf.
Dude, when this crap shows up, you hear that little news intro. For the news, the sports segment. But we got to see, thing is apparently knocked out. Tungsten balls or any everything. This thing's got more balls than pretty much the rest of the Russian army at this point. But yep, tungsten balls everywhere, in the windshields, in the cab, in the barrel of the gun even. It's all busted. And talking about busted, looks like the Russians down in Vovchansk might be busted as well, as the city is looking a little rough these days, of course due to heavy artillery fire by both sides, and once again showing us that the heavy battle is still being waged in the city. But moving on from that little bit of news and on into our next bit in the Vovchansk area, we also got to see the Russian Volunteer Corps firing on other Russians, the bad Russians, on the other side. And we're going to have to be muting that, but we can see them walking up to their mortar. DXRKFN said, can someone explain what is happening? The news is happening right now.
What's really happening here, what's really happening under the surface, the conspiracy here, is that really the Ukrainians are smashing the Russians, but we're showing it in sequences of clips. Does that help?
You know what's really happening here? A government conspiracy.
Oh, Lord!
Oh, God! The government is paying us to tell you all this stuff! Help me! But beyond that, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Actually, it's the viewers yourselves who actually help us to keep this channel running. But what is really going on here? That is a great question. What am I doing here? I could be out right now, sipping on a root beer, just enjoying a burger. I could be living life, but I'm here covering the news. What am I doing? But we see them hanging those rounds and dropping them. Dropping it like it's hot. And it is hot when it lands on the Russians downrange. What the F? Dude, keep him. He's funny. Keep him. Oh, yeah.
Oh, they censored it, man. That was heinous.
Man, it was rough. Oh, and a little brush fire going on here. You don't want those.
You remember the Russians got smoked out of somewhere, like by a brush fire not too long ago. Like they were all like jumping and running for their lives.
Dude, it was that little freaking island down in the Dnipro, yeah.
So they're very familiar with getting smoked out, you know.
Man, I'm telling you what. But with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Nice to see the Russian Volunteer Corps doing what it does. And moving on from that and up into the northeastern area of the front line, we also got to see the 108th Territorial Defense Brigade blowing up a little Russian truck. Now, Matthew, for a second there, this actually confused me, and I thought it was one of those over-the-horizon radars, but apparently it's not. But here's the clip. All right. Have you ever wanted to find yourself a Russian truck that gets blown up in an absolutely amazing way? Well, watch and learn. Now, you see the drone taking off? It's making its way over there to that little Russian facility with the truck in it, and it rams right into the hood. Boosh! Blowing it up. Carl Palmer said, "You're hot tonight," and Force said, "Why, thank you. I've been lifting." But anyways, we got to see that another drone got blown up, and the clip ends. I got to tell you, beautiful to see. And we love to know that the Ukrainians are continuing to blow up Russian supply trucks like that. Moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainians blowing up a... Oh, whoops. It's a little too spicy for y'all, but they blew up a Desert Cross ATV. The results was like confetti. But moving on from that and further down the lines, we got to see that the Korn group was recycling drones. That's the best way to put it. Here's the clip.
Знову не спрацювало. Знову йдемо забирати півішку і снаряд відправимо знову їм. Ну, долбойоба, коли ви научитесь робити ті півішки, я не розумію. Ви, сука, їх, дивись. Ви на них присилаєте, так?
And there it is.
Блядь, снаряди присилаєте, йобані.
And this man's in flip-flops, by the way.
Тихо.
He's serving his nation in flip-flops. Now, the next time, you'll sit there and say, what kind of boots can my country give to me? Ask not what your country can issue to you. Ask what you can issue to your country. And it needs to be these damn flip-flops in the turquoise color. Get some while you can. But here's the rest of the clip. When you see him grabbing the next Russian drone, you know he's trying to get the bomb off of it.
Є? Коли ви вже нахуй научитесь робити за друга, йобаний рот, що у вас не виходить?
He's flabbergasted.
He's absolutely stoked.
Та це відеопередавач, це 1.2.
Ай-яй-яй, хорошо. Ну що, слава
Oh,
Україні.
is that a battery?
Yeah.
Wow, that man's brave. He's holding up the explosive and the battery like that, like right next to each other. Like, look, it's both pieces.
But now he's going to start repurposing the drone so that way the Ukrainians can use it against the Russians.
Що це за плата така? Що москалі хуйові у вас крони, блядь?
Космос.
Пополам, це третя, брат, це третя півішка.
Я не знаю, вона як летіла, мені трохи страшно було, понял?
Та якщо б вона уїбала по вам...
Нам пизда було б, не?
Вони познали.
Ну я наушники сразу накинув в угол, забився, каже, там ноги
When you see them
бережи.
laughing about the bomb and the
Тяжело в
drone.
них, блядь.
Це останні їхні осколки.
А і в півішка вообще не
Microphone is
очом.
booked.
Півішка не
Це
чує.
один
Yeah, I'm
і
telling
два.
you.
Сказав би, що не о чому.
А після ти
Нормально обична FPV.
Що я на що ти?
А, дивись. Батка, поняв, космос називається.
Класно себе. Як ти прям.
And that's the end of the clip.
Oh, he
right
looked a
there.
little worried there at the end. Something was coming in.
Dude, he went, oh, and then the video clip ended right there. But still, very interesting to see him recycling those drones. Keep it up. Moving on from that, we also got to see the Ukrainians firing in some Russian trenches in the Sevastapol forest. Is it really a forest anymore, or is it toothpick land? It looks kind of like giant toothpicks now, but here's the clip. That's an AT-4, by the way. And there goes the next shot. You see the impacts right down there. But that's the end of that clip. And that's what's going on in the Sevastapol forest these days. But moving on from that and down the line, we also got to see that near Chasiv Yar, an FPV drone hit a Max Pro, and the entire crew lived. It was a miracle. See our man here in the turret. He's firing the 50 cal.
Let him have it.
And I think they just got hit by the FPV. I can't tell. Oh, never mind. They just got hit right there. And I can't really tell what's going on. Smoke has filled the cab. You see them continuing to drive. He's keeping it on the road. I gotta respect him. And they're just trucking along. Everything's good. Everything's all okay. And that's the end of the clip, but they made it out A-okay, and from what we understand, no one died. Everyone survived. Some people, I think, did get a little injured, but still, the Max Pro did its job. Meanwhile, we also got to see that an ATACMS missile ended up wiping out an S-300 surface-to-air missile system today. As the epic music comes playing in, you can actually see that they set up the entire battery in a single field. This is always a good thing. It's always payday when they do this, because one ATACMS will largely knock out the most vital parts of the system. And we can already see that the fire has started, and it's brewing up down there. And here comes another little juicy right there. Nice little cluster from the ATACMS. Look at that. I mean, they're cooking them. And we see more coming in. I mean, they are just wiping out this entire S-300 system, pretty much. Just cluster after cluster. They're peppering the place like salt and pepper. And we can see them continuing to rain down these ATACMS. I mean, they're just hitting them. They're blowing them away.
Peppering. That's a lot of little mini explosions that comes off those clusters like that.
Oh yeah, hundreds of them. They're like small little bombs. They throw them around everywhere. But today, a Russian Shahed drone veered directly into Belarusian airspace and crashed on its territory. And blew up, from what I understand. At least from what I heard. Before we move on to Avdiivka, a lot of people have been throwing in their thoughts on this. And a lot of people are saying it was most likely a major malfunction. Others are saying that Putin did it intentionally to send a message to the Belarusian government, which so wrongfully betrayed him only a few days ago by withdrawing all their forces along the border. Some others are unsure, and some people are wondering, what is Belarus's response? But a lot of people have had many different inputs. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this? What are you thinking about it? And what the hell am I thinking about it?
All right, so the question here on the poll, first off, it says, today a Russian drone suddenly veered into Belarus airspace and crashed on its territory in Belarus, and what are your thoughts? It looks like 45% said it was likely a major malfunction, while 37% said Putin probably did it intentionally, and 9% said, where is Belarus's response? And also, Enforcer, you might want to pull up the Twitter post here. It's on our Twitter page on the main profile. You'll see it under Noel Reports, I believe. But some details about it. A Russian Shahed drone somehow veered into Belarus's airspace. It was in there for like 60 kilometers, I believe. And then suddenly it exploded on the territory of Belarus as well. There's been no explanation for it, and also Belarus has had basically no outcry about it either. So I'm not really sure what to make of it. I would probably guess I'm with the 45%. It seems like it was probably a major malfunction. I'm not sure why Putin would intentionally send a Shahed into Belarus to blow up on their territory. That really wouldn't make much sense to me. But there's really no way to know for certain because the details are kind of lacking. But very odd circumstances. But I'm with the 45%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be with the 45% as well for pretty much the exact same reasons. I just generally think it was a malfunction. If the Russians actually had a problem with the Belarusians, we'd probably see them say something before they just start landing Shaheds on the Belarus, especially in the middle of nowhere from what we understand with how this one blew up. But with that, we're now moving on into the area of Avdiivka, where we got to see that the Omega unit was also blowing up some Russian forces today. And check it out. We're going to be muting that. We always got to mute the Epic Trap remix. We now see the drone going down and hitting another target. We can see this one hitting a basement. Oh man, that person who came in earlier, what is this? They said, who's winning? Actual bot activity right there. Get him out of here.
Man, he's gone. He's gone.
He's sleeping.
The combination of who's winning and also, I forgot what he even said the first time, but that dude was definitely a bot. Like, no doubt about it.
What is this? Who's winning?
He's very confused, fella.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like an AI.
Where am I? What's going on? It's just like, are you that confused? It's like, dude, oh my goodness, man. Don't be around him in a grocery store. How much is this?
What you gonna do in there?
Where am I?
Oh.
Where's the golf carts? Do I get a coupon? Or something like that. It's going to be like, oh no. But moving on from that, nice to see the Omega unit doing its thing. We also got to see a Russian turtle tank being destroyed by the 108th as well. Check this out. Now this was art. Boom! They got that thing dead on the nail. Oh!
A turtle tank?
A turtle tank. And here's another.
A Bliatmobile.
Dang,
or a
look,
Russian Host.
Dude, look, it's one of those giant crane things over there. Look, you can see it.
I thought it was like a building or a house or something, but yeah, it is one of those.
That's crazy, man. We're going to have to start playing that Dune music here in a minute because of that crane in the background. You know, the one that goes, you know that one? Like, we're going to have to start playing that.
I'm not going to lie, the beginning of that, like, song imitation you stood there had me worried. I was like, what in the hell are you doing?
Man, I would play a clip, but we'd get copyrighted. But moving on from that and down into Marinka, we did get to see some air recon drones down here. Check it out. They weren't doing just recon. They were also doing some hitting. Check it out.
A drag line. That's what it's called. I see the people in the live chat saying it.
And what's a drag line?
That thing we just saw.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, Matthew, I know someone else who's a bit of a drag, and they also snort a line here and there. Oh, man. Waiter. Another hit piece. Come on, I've been waiting too long. It's been like 3 days now. You got to make one. But we can see them hitting them here. And I love when we do that, Matthew, because they clip it and they send it right to them. They're like, oh my God, he's doing it. So I love doing it. It's an enjoyable thing. But we can see the drone dropping off a bomblet in that building, and it looks like it's collapsed in on itself right there.
Destiny Edgington came in with the classic bot line. Where am I? Who are you? Is this live?
Yeah.
My classic response to, is this live? No, this was recorded last year. Oh, no, actually, we recorded a year in the future, and you're just watching it now.
And then you can literally sit there and go, who is this? Yeah, of course it's live. And then they'll go, seems fake to me, government psyop. It's like, we literally just answered you. It's like you were on air. But anyways, Moving down to Novomikhailivka, we got, oh, come on. They deleted it, but there was 50 vehicles destroyed down there. It was a sight to behold. Moving on from that, we got to see a Ukrainian drone looking around Uruzhane. This one apparently is a little too spicy, so I can't show that to y'all. Whoopsies. Moving on from that and down into Robotny, we got to see that some Russian positions were getting hit. And we see the drone going in for it. Wait a minute. This is a duplicate. We're moving on from this. I'm so sorry, everyone. I don't know what's up with the Southern Front today. It's just a wacky place. But moving on down into Kherson, we did get to see a Russian truck burn in Donny. Check it out. You know, Matthew, someone in the live chat said, I love hearing enforcers sing while we watch this thing burn. And I was sitting there, man, I was thinking of that guy, you know, like you know the guy I'm talking about in India, Matthew, who like runs that stand. He'll go, "At kulpi, 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 kulpi."
Oh, yeah.
You know, like I sing like that guy, man. Like, you know, like it's not that good.
He's saying, "Kulfi, kulfi."
Man, I always get a kick out of watching that guy, man. He puts his soul into that, man. You can tell. But then so many people started to ask him about it. By the end of like the trend, he was like, you know, like at the beginning he would be like jerking around because he'd be screaming it so hard. But by the end of it, he was like, "Et kulfi, 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 kulfi." And I was like, dude, he's tired of this, man. Like this is like the 1,000th time someone's made him do this.
Going what, Jack?
And Defender Marcial says that Andrew's on caffeine. Well, yes, that is true. Every single night I am, but tonight I feel like I really need to be energetic because usually there's such a large amount of people here. I just naturally get energy from it. Like just the people here give me energy. But tonight, because it's honestly about half or a third of the size of like the amount of people who are normally on, I'm really like actually just kind of getting to cut loose a little bit more than I normally do. But moving on from that and up into the area of Kyiv, we got to see the address from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 874 of the war. And I'm telling you something, he's really going to have to pick up the length of these speeches because they're all nowadays really, really short. But
Speech time, please give me the speech.
Hello, my dear Ukrainians. No. All right, and here's the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, коротко про цей день. Провів сьогодні ставку, а також говорив із головкомом Сирським, начальником Генштабу Баргилевичем, міністром оборони Умєровим, керівником ГУР Будановим та керівником СБУ Малюком. Доповіли щодо всіх основних напрямків. На фронті, від тих, де найбільш гаряче, зокрема це Покровський напрямок, до тих, де зараз спокійніше. Але все одно потрібні і увага, і нормальне забезпечення. Над всім цим ми працюємо дуже детально щодо постачання зброї, тобто виконання вже досягнутих наших домовленостей з партнерами і швидкої логістики по кожному оголошеному пакету. І також по виробництву зброї в Україні. Це абсолютний пріоритет, і щомісяця повинно відчуватись, що Україна стає самостійнішою в питаннях забезпечення зброєю. Також доповідали сьогодні і по комплектації наших бригад. Я дякую усім, хто задіяний в цьому процесі. Є необхідна динаміка. І маємо зробити все, щоб сформовані бригади могли дати більше потенціалу нам для ротацій та підтримки тих, хто на першій лінії. Провів сьогодні нараду щодо нашої міжнародної роботи. На цей тиждень заплановані і деякі дуже потрібні перемовини, зокрема і по зброї. І ще одне, про що обов'язково варто сказати. Підписав сьогодні 2 документи. Перший – указ по відзначенню державними нагородами наших воїнів. 266 прізвищ. Воїни різних елементів сил оборони України. Всі вони абсолютно заслуговують на нашу з вами шану. І другий документ – мною ініційований законопроект, який здатен відновити справедливість саме в питаннях про те, кого ми шануємо, а хто внаслідок своїх власних дій втратив право на будь-яку повагу від українців. Це законопроект про внесення змін до Кримінального кодексу України, Кримінально-процесуального кодексу України та інших законодавчих актів України щодо позбавлення державних нагород за популяризацію або пропаганду держави-агресора чи вчинення інших протиправних дій проти України. Це стосується тих, хто отримав державні нагороди України, в тому числі Героя України, ордени за заслуги та інші. Але обрав для себе не Україну, обрав ворога і зараз підтримує Росію так чи інакше, або взагалі перебуває на її території. Потрібен правовий механізм реального позбавлення таких осіб всіх державних нагород України і почесних звань. Вони заслуговують тільки на одне звання – зрадники. А нагородою їм буде відповідальність перед Україною і нашими людьми за все скоєне проти України, проти нашої держави, проти нашої незалежності. Я прошу Верховну Раду розглянути цей законопроект вже найближчим часом. Дякую всім, хто б'ється і працює заради України. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто допомагає. Слава Україні!
And Hiram Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 874 of the news of the war in Ukraine. And that moves us on into a second segment of the stream, a segment where we get to talk to all of y'all. It's one that is filled with a great deal of talking, a great deal of fun, a great deal of laughs, of jokes, of interesting segments like hood reviews or questions, or people saying they enjoyed the channel, great job, keep it up, or other folks saying, and with that, we're on to the next one. That someone is me. But there's a lot to do. There's much to discuss. And of course, make sure to stick around because we have a lot to talk about. But, Matthew, I'm going to have to ask you a small favor. I'm going to have to ask you to take it away. So what do we got?
All right, so moving on to the final question segment of the night. We have no polls left to address, so we're moving right back into our Super Chat segment. And the first Super Chat here is going to go to Bex Chitwood, who puts in a $50 donation. Very generous support, and thank you very much, Bex, for always supporting the channel as well. And Bex said, very simply, but very proudly and loudly, LSA.
And LSA, baby! And I gotta say, thank you so much for that massive support, Bex Chitwood. And thank you for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. It is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running day in and day out. And of course, if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to say, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are going to be moving on to that next one. But before we do, I do have to make sure to say thank you so much to everyone who supported the channel so far tonight, and thank you to everyone who's watched tonight. It is very rare nowadays that we have smaller live stream audiences, and we know that it's largely because a lot of people decided to watch the convention that was going on tonight. A lot of people, while of course the Lee Spring Army has a official no politics rule, plenty of people are still heavily involved in the democratic process of the United States, and so some people have decided to go and get involved in that tonight, and go watch that instead of this, which is completely understandable because we are doing this every single day of the year. Those only come around for both sides about every 4 years because they have to have them. But beyond that, it is very rare that we get to have such a small and intimate sized audience nowadays. We don't really get these kinds of groups anymore because, like, for example, for y'all to know, on Sunday, the live stream viewership got up to an unbelievable, let me go make sure to get the exact number. It got up to an unbelievable 9,000 live viewers at the peak. There was a lot of people here. And not only that, over the length of that stream, some unbelievable 17,000 live chat messages were sent in over the length of the entire stream. And that is something that really puts into perspective how large this is on a daily basis. We are in the top 100 of the United States for the largest live streams every single day now. And it's really weird to think about that because it kind of just crept up on us, and now that's the fact of life. But because of things going on outside of the stream tonight, we actually got to get a smaller group of y'all. I would say generally the diehards who must watch this channel every single night no matter what's going on in the world. I mean, an actual national address from the president could be going on and y'all would still be watching, or something else major in the world could be happening and y'all still would be watching. And I gotta say a huge thank you to all of y'all so much for being here tonight. Y'all don't have to be here at all any night, but it's crazy to see so many of y'all who are still here. So many of y'all still enjoy the channel so much that y'all find it worthwhile to support, even on a bit more of a quiet night like this. And I gotta say that it's really nice to have a little bit, and I don't know if you'll agree with me, Andy, a little bit of a return to form with just a smaller live stream audience, because the chat is moving a lot slower. Like, I can actually read and process a lot of what y'all are saying tonight. Some nights that's a little tough. And also, it just feels like I'm actually talking to a group of people instead of like a massive crowd. I gotta say though, I absolutely love having as many people here as possible, but it is really neat tonight to see a stream that kind of goes back to the beginning days of the channel.
I'll be honest. I like the smaller streams as well. It does feel like, honestly, like until you're like running the stream or helping to run the stream, it's hard to like envision what it really feels like to see the number on the screen. But for some reason, like seeing it's still really not a small number in reality. It's still like probably 10 times larger than most live streams on YouTube, but even tonight. But just seeing the smaller number is kind of like you said, like a return to the old times. And for some reason, it feels a little bit comforting to know the number's smaller. I don't know why, but it's very interesting to see. But still, though, it's still a huge stream, even at that.
And I gotta say, it is a huge one. I mean, it's crazy to think that. Like, what's so weird is, and it sounds so detached. I'm like, there's only 4.8 thousand people here tonight at the peak. That's a really small number. In reality, no one ever gets close to having that many live viewers on YouTube. I remember way back in the day when I was a gaming channel, and I was blessed to even just have 2 live viewers. And now I'm talking about, it's a 5,000 live view stream. That's really small. Like, it's really small compared to what we've been doing lately, with like 9,000, 10,000 people on live every single night at the peak. It seems small, but it really isn't. But for some reason, because of how used I've gotten to the big numbers over the past few months, having only about 4.8 thousand people here really makes it a lot easier for me to process what I'm doing. And to be honest, it makes me feel like I can cut loose a little bit more, because I just feel like I'm around a whole bunch of the old guards that have been here forever and remember back when the channel was small and growing and everything. And nowadays, the channel is practically a juggernaut of the sphere, and it's gaining almost every day hundreds of subscribers. Like today, which is crazy, it seems like it's a slow day. Like isn't that weird, Matthew? It seemed like today was kind of a slow day. We put out a video that's gotten about 170,000 views, which nowadays feels like a slow day, although not too long ago that would have been huge. Like, even getting above 100,000 views would have been huge. And then we have a live stream here, which by most metrics on the channel's history would be a fairly normal one in viewership, and now that's starting to feel like it's just a nice, good group. Like, it's not too big, it's not too small. It's really weird. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually really weird to sit here and actually say all that and process that. But still, we are happy to have all of y'all here tonight. And I got to thank you, Bex Chidwood, among everyone else who's been here tonight and is supporting this channel and helping it to keep running, because y'all are the folks who help to make this thing possible. Whether there is 10,000 live viewers here, whether there's just a few live viewers here, literally just enough that I can count on my hand, we are still so happy to have each and every one of y'all here, because our entire job and our entire purpose for really doing anything is just to cover the news and keep y'all informed. And we're so happy that y'all enjoy it enough that y'all find it worthwhile to support and help us to be able to keep this project, this amazing project that we've made, alive and well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, something else important as well, as you might notice that as the political things are picking up, and we're not going to go into that, we don't cover politics, but everyone will notice that political stuff is picking up, and because obviously it's coming around to an election. It's sort of getting to the point where Ukraine news is not really like getting pushed like totally down, but Ukraine is sort of like taking a back seat or a back burner right now, because everyone's so focused on the excitement of the current political stuff. And that's also why, in my opinion, it's very important to make sure we keep running the streams the way we're doing it, and to do it on a daily basis no matter what, because we can't let the Ukraine cause go by the wayside just because there's a new flashy, shiny thing out there, which is the politics currently going on. So it's important to keep the, I guess you could say the awareness, although I don't like that word really, to keep the word out there about Ukraine. That's important. So also good to keep for stability as well. But
and
anyways,
there's a lot of people.
Go ahead.
There's a lot of people out there who cover Ukraine war news, but because, and here's the reality here, I hate to say this, but it's an inevitable truth. I'm sure all of y'all see it when y'all are going around, because we hear it in the live chat every night. We will keep politics entirely out of the stream beyond a very, very rare mention that it just exists. Like, we don't go into the sides that we believe in or anything along those lines. We just, every once in a while we'll acknowledge that's a thing that exists and it's going on in the background, because sometimes things happen, like someone gets shot at and nearly killed, or for example today we hear that a foreign country is planning on trying to kill one of the candidates. We'll bring it up then, but we don't bring that up at all on this channel. We don't pick a side, and a lot of y'all love that, because while my esophagus is crushing itself right there, but beyond that, a lot of people just find it amazing that this channel ever really delves into politics. A lot of y'all don't really know what our leaning is, and I know when I say that, some people in the chat are going to go, "Oh, I know what your leaning is," and then we're going to literally hear everything. They'll be like, "Oh, you're a communist, you're a fascist, you're actually a hyper-capitalist, you're a monarchist," and we will literally hear everyone say everything in the chat, and that's always how it goes when I say that, and it lets me know I'm doing my job well. Because none of y'all actually pin down what we are, and so I know that we're keeping the no politics rule incredibly well. But a lot of people out there in the Ukraine war world have decided to throw Ukraine to the side pretty much, and then just go straight into politics, which, many of y'all know who I'm talking about. Welcome back, defenders. Enforcer here.
Oh no!
Or hold on, man, I must, or everyone else. And it is very, very disheartening to see that kind of stuff. Like I just don't know. I don't know, y'all. I always, here's my take on things. You know what? This is actually, I'm going to tell y'all up front, this is my political take. Just putting that out there. People shouldn't be telling people what their political opinions are that are running things like we're running. I just feel like that's the general rule. Like, you shouldn't know what your news reporters' political opinions are, right? Like, you should be able to expect that there is a certain amount of objectivity and neutrality from your reporters, at least on a domestic political side of things. Now, of course, with foreign policy and things, I'll make it very clear that we're pro-Western. I don't have a single thing in harmony with the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, or anyone. I'm very pro-American and a huge patriot of the nation and the Western sphere as a whole, and that's one thing I will tell y'all. But beyond that, why in the world does everyone feel like it is necessary for them to try and use the platforms that they made, doing something entirely different than talking about domestic politics, to try and shove domestic politics down people's throats? Like, you see that even with people who got famous as singers, like people who sing. They're singing people, entertaining people. They became famous because they sing. And then they want to get into what their political opinions are. And I find that to be extremely annoying. And not only that, it's extremely off topic. People aren't a fan of your music because you subscribe to a certain political theory. They're a fan of their music because they like your music. So just make music. Stop airing your political opinions. And to be honest, political opinions, everyone has one. So why in the world tell people about yours? The way you exercise your own political opinion is by voting. No one really has to know who you're voting for. You just need to know who you're voting for. Go vote for them and be quiet about it. Don't tell anyone else. You don't have to. There's no point in it. That would be my take on it. That's why I gotta say I'm honestly very annoyed with how things have been going lately. With the whole political or the politicizing of Ukraine, because it's either that they completely move on to politics and then they act like Ukraine's a sideshow, or they take Ukraine and then they try and anchor it into American domestic politics like it's a domestic topic. Like, I don't get that, because you will have, and y'all all know, especially my American viewers, all of the hot domestic political topics that they talk about here in this country. I don't even have to tell y'all what they are, and I'm not going to tell y'all what they are, because I know someone's going to take the chance to try and air their own opinion, even just on me bringing up the word, but y'all will know what that is, and then they try and put Ukraine right alongside that. Like, that makes no sense to me at all, just putting that out there, because how in the world can you say something, you know what, I'll bring up one as an example. The United States government needs to reform Social Security. And by the way, Ukraine, it's like, how in the world do you even put those two things together? Like, I don't even know how in the world you can link them together. Like, they're two completely different things. One of them is a domestic issue. One of them is an issue of foreign policy. So how in the world do you say a domestic and a foreign issue in the same sentence and act like they're connected to each other? Because you can have a completely, you can have whatever take you want on foreign policy, and it doesn't even affect your take on domestic policy, and then vice versa. You can believe whatever you want domestically, and do whatever you want in the foreign affairs, and it has nothing to do with one another. That's one thing I just am not getting anymore about these political people, is that they act like everything just meshes into this one big thing of them versus the other side, and it's just not the case.
And that most people that support Ukraine, honestly, they're very politically active, because like to be focused on foreign policy issues as minute. And I know when I say minute, it's going to offend some people, like, oh no, but in the reality of it, to most average Americans, Ukraine is somewhat minute. But to people that are informed, they know how important it really is, and that's why we're here on the show. But to most people, they're heavily involved in domestic policy and foreign policy that are like looking at Ukraine and also talking about it. So that's why I think you see a lot of Ukraine people really, they can't resist the urge to dive into domestic politics and sort of tie it in, because they were really wanting to talk about domestic issues first, but they kind of had to just start talking about Ukraine because that was the hot topic at the moment.
Yeah, I would have to say that I think that's really how it goes. And then there's a lot of people. I'll have to say this. Here's my honest opinion. If anyone takes their position on reporting to y'all Ukraine war news and then uses that as a pedestal to push their own personal political opinions, I find that to be really ignorant. Like, there's really no other way to go about it. Because how in the world does you talking about Ukraine war news, which is a matter of national importance, translate into you wanting to talk about domestic politics, and that's what your audience is here for, and your opinion on it? Like, doesn't everyone, like people have got to learn, everyone's got an opinion on it, and just because you have an opinion on it doesn't mean it's special. Like, everyone has like practically the same opinion. There's like 2 or 3 different opinions right now in the country on all the major topics people are talking about. Do I really want to hear that from like the 1 millionth person? Not really. Like, I really don't care. And that's why I don't tell y'all about our political opinions. And really, to be honest, they don't really line up with anyone's, for one. And 2, why the hell would y'all care? It's just another political opinion like any other. Everyone has one. And to be honest, it's none of y'all's business what my political opinion is, and y'all really don't need to know what my political opinion is. It does nothing for anyone. It just makes people pissed off. So why share it? Like, that would be my take on it. That's really my 2 cents on the whole Ukraine war community that's really getting tied into the whole domestic political side of things. And I cannot stand, I will tell y'all, oh, Matthew, I cannot stand this. When someone puts in the video title, I am this political affiliation, and this is this. And I'm like, why tell people? Why do they need to know? Because now you will never be looked at as an unbiased reporter. You will be looked at as so-and-so, covering it from this lens. Like, why would one do that?
Yeah, I don't get it. I guess they're trying to go grab that one audience. They're like, if I can grab one audience and pander, I'll go grab this one because I know how to relate to this one the best. That's probably what they're thinking when they do it. But in reality, though, it's like, you know, we don't have to tie politics into everything. It's like, I know that, you know, Ukraine is somewhat tied into foreign policy and things like that, and it has to do with political issues somewhat. And obviously, funding to Ukraine's political now. Everything's political. Anything you look at, like around Ukraine, has somehow become political. But somehow, we've done a pretty good job at avoiding getting into any of those politics up to this point. We're going to keep it that way because, like I said before, I was advocating to talk politics on this channel when I first got on here. And after I've seen over time, the moment you say something like you espouse a certain belief on something that's political, people aren't going to say, okay, well, that's a fair point, or I don't agree with it, I think that's stupid, and they'll just move on. They instead turn into, hey, I don't agree with that at all, and I'm going to try to destroy this person for it. It's like, whoa, it's like, damn, it's like, we weren't trying to like start a fight club in here over like the opinion. We were just trying to like say what it is and then move on. But the reality of it is we have to deal with reality. And if people get violent over it, then we just have to avoid politics altogether because we're not trying to create a bloodbath. We're just trying to talk about what the situation in Ukraine is. So it's smart to avoid it.
And I would have to say it is really smart to avoid it. And also, I'm seeing some people saying all kinds of stuff. I'm seeing, holy crap, this guy's been not talking about politics for the past half hour. Yeah, because it's such an important point to beat home. Like, no one says that anymore. That's why I talk about it so much. I need y'all to be my my folks who go out there, because, you know, y'all have to, someone has to go out there, a group of people, not just someone, a group of people has to go out there and start beating people over the head, you know, rightly, you know, not like in an actual violent physical way, but beating people over the head verbally and going, what the hell are you getting into politics for? No one cares. Just do your job and shut up. That's what people ought to be telling people these days, because no one cares. I mean, really, no one does. And I don't mean that as in no one cares about politics. No one cares about your opinion. Like, if you didn't get into the political thing as your job, like as your point of existing on YouTube, why are you getting into it? Just don't. Just move on from it. Keep doing what you're doing.
But here's my thing, though. I get what you're saying as well. I just don't understand why people cannot hear the other side, because I'll be honest with you. Like, obviously, we have our own political beliefs. We're not getting into that. But I talk to several of you, the viewers, who will sometimes in DMs and stuff like that, not on the stream, you'll say something that's somewhat political. And obviously, like, things that are sent in, I might agree with it or disagree with it. Nonetheless, I say, okay, fair point. I see that, or I'll say I agree with it or disagree with it. At no point am I like, hey, I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Like, don't come back to the channel and screw off. It's like, why would I say that? It's like, you're entitled to your opinion. We're not going to be able to change anything by fighting over it. So what's wrong with just saying, okay, I mean, that's a fair point, or it is what it is, or whatever. Just have some civility about it. But these days it's not about civility. Like, I've only come across a couple of people when I was in political science classes in college. Only a couple of people, I still talk to one of them to this day, and the other one I've kind of lost contact with, that would actually listen to opposing sides and think, okay, well, that's a fair point here or there, I disagree, and you'd stay friends about it. The rest are just like, it's a melee, like a free-for-all. If you say something that go against what they believe, it's like you're about to get wrecked. And I just cannot believe that. And also, I hate to see issues like Ukraine politicized like this, because in reality, everyone knows that Ukraine's security is important. We shouldn't let a hostile country invade a sovereign country, and the U.S. just sits back and does nothing about it. But it becomes a political issue because, that's the way the two-party thing works, is it becomes a political issue when people want to try to capitalize on it. So that's sad to see. Like, there's some things that should not be political, and Ukraine's one of them. But it's here, that's reality, and we just have to deal with it.
Yeah, you would think that would be kind of like if you want to call it a bipartisan kind of a deal. It usually actually is. But, and then people want to try and make it to, only our side can support Ukraine. The other side is filled with evil demon people, or something like that. It's like, why? It's like, it makes no sense. I'll say, me personally, political people are destructive. Like, they really are. They're, for one, a lot of them, and when I say this, I'm not talking about people who are interested in politics. I'm talking about people who are very, very deep entrenched into politics. I would say that they're the far extremes on either end. One, they are violent. Like that's just a reoccurring theme. They are violent, and wish death upon people. Like that's something that still is going on. Even after the whole assassination attempt that just happened a few days ago, there's one whole side that is like, the guy missed and he shouldn't have. He should have shot him and killed him. And then the other side is like, the guy missed, shot him and killed him. The other side tried to kill him, so we need to go kill them. There's these two little camps that are absolutely crazy and extremely violent. And those people usually hang out on the internet. And so that's why, for one, I will never go into politics on the internet in any large form. And if we did, it would be neutral and objective. Two, the other thing that I don't really like is that people act like you can't just agree to disagree or hear different opinions. There's not a lot of people like that out there. And three, people then believe that if they disagree with you, they gotta hate you or they can't watch you. And that's something that makes no sense to me at all. But that's my 2 cents on it. I'm not really that big of a fan. But still, I gotta thank you so much once again for showing up tonight, Bex Chidwood, and appreciating this channel enough that you'd support it, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, so jumping into our next super chat here, we have a $50 donation. Also, a massive support from Veteran RN. And this is not Veteran Registered Nurse, like I said before. This is Veteran RN. They said,
Royal
please
Navy.
like and subscribe. Yes, Royal Navy. They said, please like and subscribe and LSN.
And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Veteran RN. And please do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you were here tonight. We would love to see you. We've gotten up to 2,000 likes, which is actually a pretty impressive bit for the amount of people who've been here tonight. And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Veteran Royal Navy, and helping this channel to keep it running. And thank you for being one of our viewers all the way from the United Kingdom and one of our veterans of the Royal Navy, which is incredibly cool. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and get to talk on here each and every night, even on just things that kind of bother us, like the topic we were on just a moment ago. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Purple Gerbil, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Purple Gerbil, for that support. And he said, take one from the live chat. And we shall, in honor of Purple Gerbil. Hey! We're going to grab that live chat question. And this one is going to go to, let's see here. It's going to go to Gabby White, who says, dude, did you see that one of the lead Russian propagandists now in Russia lived and used to work in Huntsville, Alabama? And yes, that is Soliev. He used to live right here in Alabama in our state. The guy who spews all that Russian propaganda and absolute dribble, he was about, I think, 50 to 100 miles away from us at one point. I believe he was working at a university somewhere. We won't say the name because we're not really sure. But he was working up there at some university, probably spewing the propaganda there as well. But a very interesting fact, and that is true. But Enforcer, what say you?
And that is true. He did work there, and he was a very interesting guy. But yeah, he used to be, I think it was some kind of a professor. He was a professor of something at a university in Huntsville, Alabama, which is pretty weird because he was actually in the state while we were growing up. And now he goes and spews all of this evil rhetoric, although he lived and worked in the U.S. for years. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And I'm seeing some people, some bots, maybe some detractors and haters, bringing up something that they want to put out as a contradiction. Now, let me explain this really quickly, because this is something that apparently is a little two-dimensional, well, three-dimensional for two-dimensional folks to understand. Some people say, you celebrate the Russians losing their lives in Ukraine, but when a presidential candidate gets shot at, you want to act like it's a tragedy? Well, here's the difference. Okay, one, the presidential candidate getting shot at is not supposed to happen. It's not a war. It's what's called an election. And we have these every 4 years. And what's supposed to happen is that these people put out their political agendas, people listen to them, and then they decide whether they like them or not, and whether they think they're going to be good presidents or not, and then they vote for them, and then one of them wins. You're generally not supposed to get shot and killed in that process, because it'd be pretty hard to get to the whole voting thing if you were shot and killed, or if everyone was shot and killed by the end of that. So that's considered a tragedy, because that's not supposed to be happening in a well-functioning democracy, and it's a depraved individual that would try and do something like that. On the other hand, Ukraine is fighting a war against a country that has invaded them, and because of that reason, and generally because we support Western interests, we root for the Ukrainians because they are on the Western side and a part of Western interests. And so, when the Russians get shot at in Ukraine, we generally take that as a fairly good thing because it means that they're not taking over the country because there's a Ukrainian army fighting against them. And not only that, it's in the support of Western interests. And, hate to put it out there, hate to break it to you, but it's a war and people are going to get shot at. And considering that it is a war, generally, you would want the army on your side to be shooting at and getting the other guys a lot more than they're getting you. And so that's why we cheer that on. There's a little bit of a difference there. Because just because we sit there and root for the Ukrainian side and cheer on the Ukrainians at the detriment of the Russian army, which is what you do in a war, doesn't mean that you have to be for violence across the whole board. Because there's different kinds and ways where violence is acceptable and unacceptable. Like in war, if a soldier shoots another soldier in an enemy army and kills him, that's considered A-okay, because it's a war. Now, if you go over to your next door neighbor and you grill him with a shotgun, probably not that great. That's called murder, and that's largely illegal. And so that's kind of a bit of the difference. Yeah, well, largely illegal.
Totally illegal.
Yeah, it's wildly illegal. So that's kind of the difference. I don't know how people don't get that. But that's generally why one of them is considered an absolute tragedy, and the other one is considered kind of a normal day, is because there's two different environments involved there. Trying to compare them is like comparing apples to oranges. But I hope I addressed that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat here goes to Char G, who puts in a $20 donation. Huge shout out to Char G for once again supporting the channel. And they threw in 2 animal-style fries and some shakes for the boys from out in Cali. And take one from the chat. Excuse me. Oh man, that was a rough one. But Chargy, thank you very much for that support and also for the animal style fries. I have not gotten back to In-N-Out Burger, and now that Chipotle is off the menu permanently for me, I need a new food place. So I need to move out to where In-N-Out Burger is, solely for the fast food joint. And thank you very much for getting us some animal style fries. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much, Shargy, for getting us some of those delicious animal-style fries. I'll be getting some whenever we go out there. I don't know when we're going out there now, and I will make sure to get a shake, too. Try to fatten me up, Shargy. I'm on a diet over here. And also, I'm exercising. I've actually lost a pretty good amount of weight. Hope is, just to throw that out there because I brought that up, the hope is, y'all, is that I will have lost enough weight and I'll be in great enough shape that by the time the next Christmas address comes around, which will be in a couple of months here, well, really about 6 months from now, I will pretty much look completely different than I did on the last Christmas address. That's kind of the hope. I don't know if that's really going to happen all the way, but I'm hoping that it will. And Matthew can tell you, I mean, I'm out there. I'm getting my steps in. I mean, you know, like, I'm really going for it. But still, I gotta say, thank you so much for wanting me to destroy my diet and all my hard work, but I will, Shargy, if I could get an animal-style fry and some shakes. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Shargy, and all the way in Cali. And we will make sure to take one from the live chat. But still, thank you massively for the support. And what do we got, Matthew?
And this one is going to go to, let's see here, this one's going to go to Chris, who says, how long do you both think that Putin can hold that economy together? As long as he can hold the oil refiners together, he will be able to hold the economy somewhat together. But if you'll notice, though, it's having some trouble right now. If you follow the Russian stock market, they've been in somewhat of a downward decline over the recent months. And it seems to be possibly accelerating a little bit. So they're not holding it together too well. But a total collapse might be a little ways away until those oil refineries get knocked out in bigger quantities. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I would have to say, to answer your question, I don't think the Russian economy can hold on that much longer without external support, like a life support system like the Chinese economy. It looks as though they are in a gradual free fall at the moment, and I'm suspecting that it probably will collapse by the later end of this year or the beginning of next year. So I don't think they're holding on that well, and there's clear signs showing that even some of the major companies, like, let's see, what was it? Gazprom Oil, which is, I believe...
Yandex, too.
Yeah, a load of them, a huge amount of the companies are starting to fail, and it looks like the Russian government can't even bail them out because they're so strapped for funds at the moment. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you for asking a really good question, Chris. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Defender Marcia LSA, who also puts in a $20 donation. Huge shout out to Defender Marcia for that support. And she said, I gotta support the channel on special days. And last week was my 2-year anniversary of being a member of the LSA. Booyah! Yeehaw, and jaga jaga! And also, congrats.
And congrats to you. Huge congrats to you. 2-year anniversary of being on the channel. Man, that is crazy. You know what's crazy, Matthew? I don't really think about it because we work hard enough on this channel. I don't really think Matthew and me ever sit back and really think about this. But I've been doing this for 874 days. I think Matthew, at that metric, has been doing this for about 840 to 850 days. And we've been doing it 6 days a week, every single day, really without a break over that entire time. And it's really weird to think that the channel has been running for so long now that if a baby was born on the first day that this channel ran, that baby is now 2.5 years old, probably saying their first words and walking. And it's really weird to think that the channel has been running that long. It's bizarre, actually, because for some reason, whenever I think about it, it's like, dang, I really feel like we just started doing this the other day, and it's been 2.5 years now, and we've pretty much been doing it nonstop. That is crazy.
We've been doing this through college, through several different life events. We did this through the trauma of law school, which I hope I can forget one day all about that. And we've done through a lot of stuff, man. It's a lot of stuff. It's been going on for actually longer than I can comprehend, really. It feels like we just started yesterday, though.
It really does. It's so crazy to think that you've been here for 2 years, Defender Marcy, and I'm so happy to think that we've been on air that long. It's so bizarre because when you really do think about it, not a lot of YouTube channels actually survive more than like a year or a year and a half. Most channels actually have, if y'all don't know, a very, very short lifespan. YouTube channels are usually expected to only survive about a year, maybe a year and a half. And sure, of course, the YouTube channel will exist beyond that point, but largely they drop off and completely become irrelevant. A lot of channels have ended up having that happen to them. It's just kind of the natural style of things on YouTube. And one day, which is really weird to think about, it'll happen to this channel. It's just that we don't know when. But still, I gotta say, it is crazy. It is bizarre to think that we've been here for 2.5 years. Not a lot of YouTube channels survive that long. And not a lot of YouTube channels really do this well over that kind of a time span. And what's even weirder is that we're actually growing. Like, we're not just on air. We're not just stagnant. Like, the channel is growing at a massive pace these days. Just over the really since the beginning of this year, this channel has grown another 70,000, I think 80,000 subscribers, which is about a third of the channel's entire size. Really just gained over this year. We've gotten more views at this point this year than we did over the entire length of last year, and it's really bizarre to think about that, how this channel is just kept on running. I never expected that I would be doing this for 874 days straight. It has been wild. It's been bizarre to really think about that right now. And thank you so much, Defender Marcia, for being here with us for 2 years, being an old guard, in helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to be here on air this long. We wouldn't have been able to keep this thing running. And so thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping it to be possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. Long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I gotta say, like, for as long as the stream's been running and stuff like that, and the few times we've ever taken, like, short breaks off the stream, and even on Mondays as well, it messes me up significantly. I don't know about y'all, but I really like having a structured schedule, and knowing the stream's gonna happen every single night, and there's also no, like, off days or inconsistencies there with that. We're pretty consistent with doing the stream pretty much every night, except for a few exceptions here and there. That's very comforting to me personally, know it's going to happen every night, for me to be on here to do it. And also, I know there's viewers out there as well that don't know what to do on Mondays. So I know I'm not alone in that. So I just love to see it. The consistency is great. But anyways, jumping onto our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from Purple Gerbil once again. And a huge shout out to Purple Gerbil. And sadly, no comment to address on this one, but huge shout out. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you for the support once again, Purple Gerbil, helping this channel to keep on running, down there in the trenches, helping to make this thing possible, and without leaving a comment too. Very sad. We always love to address something, but beyond that, while you didn't throw in a comment, the support means a lot. It helps us to keep this channel running, and I thank you so greatly for still being here with us and still supporting this channel and wanting to see us on air, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible each and every day. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Philip Lamebull, who puts in a $20 donation. And a huge shout out to Philip for that very generous support as well. He said, "Thanks, guys, from Seattle." Oh, Seattle. That's the place that has that. Is that the place that has a Space Needle, before I sound ignorant?
Yes, that is the Space Needle.
Oh, it's the Space Needle. They have it in Seattle. I've never seen it in person. I've never seen it, but I would like to see it. I've heard the Space Needle is world renowned. I've heard it's a spectacular thing, Space Needle, but I'd like to see it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta tell you, Seattle's got the best Space Needle. People come up to it and they go, "Wow, that's a beautiful Space Needle." And I go, yeah, it's the greatest. It's the most beautiful Space Needle.
But beyond that, thank you so much for the support. And I gotta say, really cool to know you're all the way from Seattle, Philip. That is incredibly cool. Seattle is an interesting place. I've always wanted to come up here and check this place out. Museum of History and Industry. What kind of museum is this? Now, this actually sounds like an interesting museum. So what is in the Museum of Industry? That's a really clean museum, actually.
That is clean. That flooring is something to be desired. I love that.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. And also they got some nice little boats. I like those boats. Those are some nice boats. But what is this? I don't know what that is. Don't care to know. They got a boat down here. Man, it's kind of big. The Swift Surf. I'm telling you.
Looks like it could be interesting.
It looks like it could be, but I don't know. I don't know about it. But a really cool museum.
It's big and it's red.
Dude, that sounds like a communist. Like, it's big and it's red.
It's the big red.
It's the big red scare, damn it. Call in the government. But still, with that, I gotta say, really cool place. I would love to see this one day. I mean, it's a really interesting city, especially with how it's laid out. It's on 2 peninsulas. But still, I would like to see this one day. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to take a quick little look at something up there in Seattle. And also, look, Matthew, it's Bangor, where all the nuclear submarines are kept in this part of the country. Isn't that cool? Right over here.
That's a good place to keep them. Is it's nice and quiet up there in that spot.
Man, but you know where I'd really like to keep them? I like to keep them up there in that Puget Sound. Where is that? Let's see. Right up here. Puget Sound.
Interesting.
I
like
it's not
that.
pronounced that way. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's not Puget. But anyways.
Puget.
Yeah, it's Puget or something like that. But yeah, you know, we just gotta leave it for what it is. And then the Boeing factories right here in Everett.
Oh, whoa. Be careful.
Look at that. I have to
I
let you
love Boeing.
I love Boeing. Dude, Boeing's the best,
I
man.
love their
I bought
planes.
3 Boeings last year, man. They're
You did?
incredible.
I bought 4.
Dude, say less, dude. You can't top
Man,
me.
I
got
walked on a
5.
production line. I saw them screwing those screws in so tight, those screws would never fall out. I
Dude.
saw them gluing those panels on so perfect. I saw like the paint being applied, like they were slathering that paint on there. There was no thin spots like that. The planes fly perfect. I've never seen a wheel fall off, or the wheels are perfectly attached. It's perfection, man. It's Boeing perfection.
Man, I'll tell you something, man. When I went to Boeing, I actually kissed the shoes of the CEO, and I actually made an altar to Boeing in the house. I pray to it every 7 times a day. I point straight to Everett every single day. Like, I'm telling you, man. Like, I don't mean to sound scared, but I don't want to die. Like, I'm just kidding, but still. Oh man. But yeah, Boeing's up here, so you know, if you ever wanted a plane that crashes itself, you can get one from here. But yeah,
in reality, Boeing's a disaster. They're not gluing the stuff. They're not screwing the stuff.
They need to screw harder. They need to screw harder. But still, this place would be interesting to see in real life. No joke. But thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. Hopefully one day we'll be able to travel around. I don't know when that'll be, but hopefully it'll be someday. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for support, Philip, and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and this one is going to go to Made in Canada 182, who puts in a $15 donation. And thank you very much, Made in Canada, for that support. They said, hard-hitting, super serious question. Uh-oh, let's see if it is. They said, LSA wants to know, both enforcers' all-time favorite beverages, and long live the LSA, the best world news channel around.
Yay!
And I'll tell you mine, also, big shout out for the kind words, I'll tell you my favorite beverages of all time. If I'm picking the top 3, because I can't really just do one. Number 1 would be the Milo's sweet tea that you can find in the store. I don't know if it's out of the South or not, because I really haven't checked, but very good stuff. It comes in that gallon jug. I love that. Another thing I would say is probably, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to stick with one, because I really can't think of another, so I'm just going to go with that one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, and this is going to sound so stupid, it's water. Like, no joke. Like, I cannot really handle drinking anything else rather than water a lot. Like, you know, like if I had to say that I had a favorite drink that was not water, it would be like root beer or something. But then even at that, I don't really drink root beer that much. No. Honestly, it would be milk. Like, that's the next thing I drink more than, well, close to water is milk. That would be my favorite. But I just don't really drink a lot of soda. You see, I have a thing. It's not a medical thing. It's not like diabetes or anything, but I'll explain it really quickly. I have a thing where I actually get sick whenever I have any sugar in sizable amounts. So I can eat like a slice of birthday cake and that'll actually make me feel physically sick. So I can't really drink anything sugary a lot or I'll get sick off of it. So I generally have to pick salty things or things that are mildly sweet. So most drinks in America, because they're so sugary, are off the list, because just drinking one will get me kind of really sick. So it's generally milk or water for me. And then that's really it. But if I had to go with an actual drink, it would be root beer. I would probably pick Dad's root beer. That was a pretty good brand of root beer when we had it. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. That was really a heavy hitter made in Canada, and I gotta say, it's something that really caught me off guard. I was scared to answer that question. Also, Tom Xman said, "How about fruits, Andrew?" No, fruits don't make me sick. Actually, I can eat a lot of fruit. It's just that I don't really get fruit I'm happy with a lot. Like bananas are all right. Apples are really good. I really like apples because they're always like very consistent. But then other fruits like strawberries. Strawberries can kind of be a hit and a miss. Like you can get a really bitter strawberry or a pretty good one. Watermelon isn't that bad. I like watermelons. Sometimes, you know, like they're pretty good, but you can get kind of like a crappy watermelon, and then that really turns me off of watermelons for a bit. It's like when you get like the one that literally tastes like water, and there's like no flavor. I cannot stand that. So then I like get turned off the watermelons for a bit. Let's see, what's another good fruit? Mangoes are usually pretty good. Like they're usually pretty solid, but then there's some bad mangoes. Plums are all right. Don't really have them a lot, but I've had them before. I like plums.
You know, the best fruit, the bussin' fruit, is when they freeze dries those strawberries and they put them in a bag.
Yeah,
that's the best. Like I don't know what about freeze drying the fruit, like, especially the strawberries, that makes them so good. But I love that. It's like fruit chips. I love that a lot. They just need to lower the price on them though, because they're a little bit expensive.
And also Tom Exman said, but they have sugars though. And yeah, they do, but it's not a lot of them. And also I don't really eat a lot of fruit anyways. Like my diet nowadays generally consists of a pretty okay amount of meat or a pretty okay amount of vegetables, and then water or milk or something like that. So it's a pretty medieval diet. Like there's, well, one thing that's not medieval is that I like hot sauce, so I put a hot sauce on a lot of stuff. But beyond that, it's a generally salty diet. There's not really a lot of sweets in it. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best I can. A good question, though. And thank you once again, Made in Canada 182, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Duncan VR, the channel legend who throws in a $15 donation. And a huge shout out to Duncan for that support once again. And of course, he has the animal noises. This is in the super chat, so no one freak out. So Duncan said, "Baba Moo, the one Russian quack who gets the F-16 won't actually ever get Meow Wolf his sack of potatoes, oink oink, because they don't have the money to pay for him, the Baba, for the McTasty Fund. And can we have an Allen pimp?"
And can we have an Alan? I don't know.
You got Alan out there, pimp?
Do we have Alan out there, pimp, Mac Data? You know we do. But let me go grab that and get it ready really quickly, and then I'll read the question and answer it. But it's Duncan VR with the traditional animal noises. I had to make sure to throw that out there. And I would have to say, through the deciphering of that message, I would agree with you. They're never going to get that money. It's just the illusion of money to encourage people to try and shoot that thing down. But with that, it is that time of the night, folks. Duncan VR has requested. We must oblige. It is. I love it. Hey, it's the Mormon.
Alan. Hello there. Good evening, good sir. Could I interest you in some quality YouTube content? We're putting it out here. We have plums, we have YouTube, we have videos, we have live stream, anything, sir. And if that doesn't satisfy your liking, we have Fat Tail on the sale back here in the back. As to fly.
Man, they really are a massive YouTube channel, but this 50th hit piece is really going to get them this time. The world shivers when Mercado. Oh, wait a minute, whoopsie. When Hot Dog Man loses his cool.
Oh dear, my fur is standing on edge, good sir. I'm so rattled by the 50th hit piece. What could he say now? What could he say in this drug-induced rage that he's going into? What could it be?
Oh man, I have piles and piles of evidence against them. They're liars, grifters.
Saving it for a good old rainy day, Chad. Bring it on out. You're about 50 videos late.
Well, you'll have to wait for like another 4 hit videos to come out until I really release the evidence, because it's really going to crush them. Oh,
sounds like a big scam, sir. I want the goods now. I want it now. I'm not going to pay 5 easy payments of $19.99 to see the evidence. They're bringing it out now, good sir. Bring it out.
Aw, man, maybe if you get a couple of channel memberships, pay for my legal fund, and also my free trip to Ukraine, maybe you'll finally get the evidence. Aw,
Oh, yes.
man.
The sympathy points. That's right. That's right. Want to build up some funds, pay some rent. That's right. A little legal fund. That's right. Go hire that invisible attorney.
Listen, guys, after y'all did all of that fundraising to buy these trucks, y'all owe me a free vacation, damn it. I'm gonna guilt trip y'all into supporting my free vacation. Although I literally didn't do shit in that fundraiser but run it. Come on, what the hell? But beyond that, it's Alan the Marmot, baby! And we love Alan the Marmot. We love him. And Matthew, whip out that famous line.
You'll do what you're told.
Hey! I love it. I love it.
Oh my god,
man.
I gotta tell you what. I'll be honest with you. Like in the beginning, when the clown was doing all those routines and stuff like that, like I'll be straight up honest, it bothered me, and that's why we reacted so strongly to it. But now seeing how like nuts the guy is and stuff like that, he's really shown his true colors over time, and I'm glad most people have wised up to that. Even the other YouTubers that we're really not on good terms with the other YouTubers, to be honest with you. Even they've woken up to it in their stupor themselves and realized, hey, this guy's actually a nut, and they've distanced themselves from that nut. But I gotta tell you, now it's just like hilarious to me. Actually, I look forward to the next hit piece. I'm like, put the next one out because it gives me a good laugh. It's like comedy. It's like put out the next what's the stand-up comedian, like the Jerry Seinfeld piece. Let's go. But Jerry Seinfeld's actually funny and Hot Dog Man's not.
Man, throwing out the heat. But I would have to say, yeah, they used to really, like, being honest now, because we can talk about it in retrospect. It was like hell a year ago at this point. Yeah, it actually would really shatter us when this specific guy, this lunatic, would make hit pieces on us. Because the thing is that the guy never had any proof. It was just raw defamation, just complete character assassination with no proof or evidence, just attempting to destroy our reputation because the guy doesn't like us. And back in the day, it used to have a little bit of impact. And then at one point, it actually had a big amount of impact because the guy doxed us, and then we took some action enforcing our copyrights and decided to enforce our copyrights specifically because the guy was doxing us and trying to encourage people to come and physically harm us. And then a whole bunch of people wanted to take his side and say, well, he's got a right to, put them in danger. He's got a right to do that. Although then, there was that whole thing with the YouTubers that were millions of subscribers larger than us, and the same thing happened to one of those people, and then everyone went, that's unacceptable. But then when it happened to us, apparently it was totally fine because that's free speech to, put people's lives in danger and defame them. But anyways, the guy just keeps on going. Eventually, he ended up running the rope thin with all of his friends that he got in that moment, which was fun to watch because we knew it was going to happen, and it eventually happened. And so now he's got some new friends, a lot smaller than the friends he had, at least in terms of size of their channel, but he'll eventually run the rope loose with them, and those people are a little bit too ignorant and too dumb to know that it's just a matter of time before they get turned on and attacked by this vicious psycho. But beyond that, it is always so fun to sit here and get a good laugh out of it. And also, where the hell is that hit piece? Because back in the day, a hit piece would be promised and it'd come out. Now the lazy ass can't even come out with a hit piece when he says he's going to make one, and I want one. Like, listen, I'm not begging to not have it put out. I want that thing out there. I want people to see it. Because I'm sure it'll be all kinds of fun stuff, just like the last hit piece video. I'm sure we're going to see some shocking revelations about how we're Hitler, the devil, or something along those lines, to try and get people to hate us or something. But the sad truth is that it just doesn't work. It just doesn't, especially considering that he's done that now against like 4 other YouTube channels. He literally has like a Rolodex of people who are literally Hitler and literally Satan now that he just goes through. So, like, I'm sure he'll eventually come back around to us. I'm just waiting for it. But yeah, y'all ought to see that guy on Twitter. Oh my lord, that guy goes off on everyone on Twitter. It's not just us. It's Welcome Back Defenders attacks him daily.
I think he's on his 4th Twitter account. That's how bad it is, man. It's like he burned the first one, banned for community guidelines violations, burned the second one. I think he burned the 3rd one, if I'm not mistaken, and now he's on the 4th one. So, man, it's just crazy. I've watched those Twitter meltdowns over time. See, and I'm always like waiting. I'm like, when's the notification going to come in for these reports to say, okay, we've removed him for like violent speech. He's on here threatening people. It's like, okay, finally Twitter gets them every time. It takes them a good minute, but they get around to them.
Oh man, and it's always, and also what's so stupid about this guy now if y'all ever want to hear something, because this is something that we can relate to a little bit, considering our personal experience, is that Hot Dog Man, like, you know, and what's so stupid is that he tries to make himself out to be a victim now because our channel has grown so large that he looks like a little channel kind of getting beat up when we make fun of him. But the truth is that the guy attacked us first, like out of the blue, and then we tried to settle it with him, and then he went back to attacking us, and then we just decided, what the hell, you know, it's not like we're going to sit there and cower down to some weird crackhead in Minnesota. So, you know, we, you know, just started to shoot stuff back. But what is so funny about this whole ordeal is that the guy is so delusional. He actually thinks he can take down other channels just by smearing them with stuff he has no proof of. But it is a sad thing. Beyond that, Matthew, what is the Marmot's got to say about that? I know he's got one thing to say.
He said, let's move on to the next question.
Oh, it's supposed to be you'll do what you're told. But okay, all right.
We'll do what you're told. Move on to the next question.
Hey, there we go. Hey, look at that. Look at that. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this super chat goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who's back once again. And huge shout out to AMX10 for the $10 support. They said it might be a U.S.-led coalition to incapacitate Iran's nuclear program with no nuclear weapons in the war.
I would say that would be a really nice coalition. I think that would be a great objective to have against Iran, is to make sure that they cannot produce and use a nuclear weapon. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And thank you once again for making this channel possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, you saw a bot come here and say, LOL, who is this guy? It's like, dude, you're like, it's like, dude, the question's actually back on you. Who are you? It's like, who are you coming live chat, buddy?
No, he wasn't saying it like that. He was saying, who is the hot dog, man? That's what he meant.
Are you sure?
Let me check.
Because this, I've never seen this guy before.
Let's see here. I'm not seeing him in the live chat earlier, unless there was a load of.
Nah, man, that looks like a bot to me.
Keep him around. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. I'm sure he's going to come and say, these guys are George Soros funded or something like that in a second. But give him a chance. Give him a chance. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Andy L. Once again, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Andy, once again for the support. He says, history will show the Ukrainians as one of the most patriotic, inventive, and resilient countries in modern history. I agree with that, Andy. I actually agree with that. Here's why. Because everybody counted Ukraine as the underdog. Because everyone believed that Russia was a massive military force to be reckoned with. And we quickly found out that Ukraine can hold their own. Obviously, they need a lot of Western military equipment to hold their own. But ultimately, it comes down to the willpower. And I think Ukraine has shown that they are one of the most patriotic countries out there. They truly believe in their cause, and they're willing to fight and die for it if necessary. And they simply don't give up. Very resilient. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to agree with that. I do think that they are going to go down as one of the most resilient, inventive, and patriotic countries in the modern day. And I think those are certainly amazing attributes and qualities to have as your national identity for the large part of the modern world. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support.
And also, by the way, I'll issue a correction because I was wrong. This person who came in the live chat, they were not trolling, even though it looked like they were trolling. They were actually talking about who is that hot dog man. Say what?
That's what I said.
Well, listen, man. Listen. We all make mistakes.
We do make mistakes.
I'm sorry to you.
Cancel.
I think it's Bleat. Oh, cancel.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to you, Bleed, for mistaking you as a bot. And also, who's the hot dog man? We do not say his name around here. His name shalln't be spoken. It's terrible. But there's an actual bot that said, oh, it's a pure propaganda channel. Oh, well, thank you. But anyways, moving on to our next super chats here. We have a $10 super chat from Rob S., as well as a $5 super chat from Asa Afvander, as well as a $5 super chat from Nick, LSA. And all three did not leave comments, but huge shout out to Rob, Asa, and Nick very much for supporting the channel, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Rob S., Asa, and Nick, all for supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible day in and day out, and we wouldn't be able to get the news out to all of y'all. And so I got to say that we are massively appreciative to each and every one of y'all once again, and a huge thanks to y'all for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again to the three of y'all. I thank y'all once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Point of Guinness, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Point of Guinness, for that support. They said, welcome back, Defenders. LSA here. Give one to the chat.
Wait, hang on. Welcome back, Defenders. LSA here. Give one to the chat. And we will, Point of Guinness, we will. And so, with that, what do we got from the live chat, Matthew, in honor of Point of Guinness?
And this question is going to go to Miller Pebble, who says, is Orban good for peace, guys? Is he good? He's been doing a lot of shuttle diplomacy, and what's your opinion of him?
He's not in a position to negotiate anything. He doesn't have an advantageous position with Russia or Ukraine. I would say he's not in a good position to negotiate anything. Erdogan, on the other hand, and Turkey, I would say they're actually in a fairly good position to be the brokers of peace in this conflict. But Orban, no. Ukraine has outright rejected him as a possible negotiator for a peace settlement already. So that's pretty much that ship has already pretty much set sail for the large part. It's not going to be happening. But with that, I hope that does address that live chat well. Thank you once again, Point of Guinness, for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Point of Guinness once again, who puts in a 5 and says, well, good night, LSA. Time to snore my head off. Keep up the good work, Enforcer and Matt, and give one once again to the chat.
Hey, and good night to you, Point of Guinness. And I hope you have a great night's sleep, and Point of Guinness. I hope you have an amazing night's sleep. And I hope when you wake up tomorrow and you see us answering these live chats, you go, hey, well, I mean, super chats, you go, hey, those are mine. And they are. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support. And we will make sure to give another one to the live chat in honor of Point of Guinness. And so, what do we got, Matthew?
And this live chat question right here is going to go to Destiny Edgington, who says, so would it be a war crime if Ukraine invented a laser gun for the battlefield?
Actually, no. It wouldn't really be a war crime as long as they don't use it directly against enemy personnel. As long as they don't do that, it should be fine. But if they use it against enemy personnel to blind them or something, or maim them, that would technically be a war crime, because I believe that's already been deemed a war crime for about a decade or more at this point. But still, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for the support, Point of Guinness, and sponsoring that live chat question. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to CK Bold, who throws in the regular, the number 5, and says, take a live chat question. And thank you very much, CK Bold, as always. And this live chat question goes to, let's see here, goes to W13RD guy, who says, how many tactical nukes does the U.S. have in deployment versus Russia and China?
We don't have a lot of them in Europe. From what we understand, the publicly stated number is 2 in Germany. We don't know about any others in Europe at the moment off the top of my head, and I believe that our nuclear arms in East Asia are actually somewhat substantial. I believe we have several dozen tactical nuclear weapons ready to go in East Asia. I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number at the moment, but it is a fairly larger amount compared to what we have in Europe at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address your question fairly well. It's not a lot, though, compared to the Russians, because, of course, considering that Russia is in Russia, pretty much all of their tactical nuclear weapons are inside of Russia, not that far away. So they do outnumber us in the just raw numbers of tactical nuclear weapons, but it's not really that big of a deal, because if they started to get too much of an advantage in that kind of an exchange, then we just start flinging intercontinental ballistic missiles at them, and that largely will stop them from ever doing that in the first place. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again, CK Bold, for sponsoring that live chat question, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to Michelle Esquera, who puts in a $5 donation. And huge shout out to Michelle for the very generous support as well, and also for all the kind words that she's been putting in the live chat tonight. Huge shout out for the kind words and also that support. And also, Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Michelle, and helping this channel to keep on running. I got to thank you for throwing in the kind words, too, because I've been seeing them, and I think they're nice. I think they're really nice. And so, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you once again for being one of our longtime viewers, Michelle. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is a $5 super chat from Robert Johnson, and a huge shout out to Robert Johnson as well for the support. a question to address on this one, but Robert, in honor of your donation, I'm going to take a question from the chat, and this one goes to Destiny Edgerton once again. And they said, Enforcer Matt, who did Ukraine give their nuclear weapons to when they gave them up? And Enforcer, if I'm not incorrect, didn't they destroy them or did they give them away?
Most of them were destroyed, but then some of them were inherited by the Russians because the Russians were the successor state legally to the USSR. So they were kind of owed some of the nuclear weapons. So Ukraine gave some of them back, but I think most of them ended up getting dismantled and destroyed.
Interesting. So they destroyed them. So that is the answer to the question. They did not give them away, except for maybe a few of them. So Russia might have a couple of Ukraine's nukes, funny enough, based on that answer.
And that is true. That is true. And so that I hope that does answer left your question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 and says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
Thank you so much for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment. And of course, hit the like button, folks. It's an order from LSA Sergeant Figment. You gotta follow the orders when they're given to you. But still, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support, LSA Sergeant Figment, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. So with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the last super chat of this segment. And then we're gonna be moving on into our live chats. So what do we got, Matthew?
So this one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 2 and says, to the Ramen Noodle Fund, LSA, and hello, Alan.
And hello there! And thank you so much for the support to the Ramen Noodle Fund. We don't really eat a lot of ramen noodles around this house, but I'll tell you, this is a Maruchan instant ramen house around here. I'll tell you that. But still, I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. We appreciate a ramen here and there. Can't diss on it. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running, Bruce Lee. And thank you for being our final super chat of the night. And so, with that in mind, we gotta get on into some live chats. From what I'm seeing here, we don't got that many of them. And so we'll probably be able to knock all of them out, actually. And so, Matthew, take it away.
All right, so moving on to our live chats. Now that we're all done with the super chats, and once again, huge shout out to everybody who donated tonight to the channel as well. We appreciate that very much. And we're now moving on to our Morse code decoders of the night. And tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, and David Millsaps. They said the Morse code decipher says Russian forces are winning so good that they're leaving Ukraine. Lata Migo, LSA.
And Latte Mago. And y'all got that Morse code message correct? Get on the nail. That was it. And I gotta say, those Russians are winning so good they're leaving Ukraine. You know, it's like a victory before they actually won. Isn't that great? But beyond that, I gotta say, y'all got that Morse code message correct. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that right on the 874th day. And I mean, y'all hammer those things out like clockwork. I gotta say, it's actually wildly impressive. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we've now got a question from Ryan Peacock. He says, please look up the Bowen 747 airborne chemical laser back from 10 somewhat years ago and give the thoughts. LSA.
Let's take a look at that chemical laser. It's called the Y'all. Hey, what's up, y'all? And then just burn someone with a laser. It's literally Y'all 1A airborne laser right here.
Now that front thing's the laser part or the laser emitter?
Maybe. It's fairly bulbous.
That is bulbous. I wonder how much of the airplane is having to be power storage.
Probably a lot of it. Probably why they picked this thing out in the first place. But what do we got here?
Cancellation.
Oh, they canceled it, and there it is, ready to be broken up. So I'm guessing that this thing wasn't that successful.
I guess not, if they're canceling it.
Yeah, I think they only built one of these things, too. Yep, one of them, and it was canceled, and they retired it in 2014. So this thing was not around that long. It only flew for about 12 years, and then it was decommissioned. Let's see. The Y'all one with a low-power laser was test-fired in flight at an airborne target in 2007. A high-energy laser was used to intercept a test target in January 2010, and the following month successfully destroyed 2 test missiles. Funding for the program was cut in 2010, and the program was canceled in 2011. It made its final flight on February 14, 2012 to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base near Tucson to be kept in storage at the Boneyard. It was ultimately scrapped in September 2014 after all usable parts were removed. So the system was largely a failure, and let's see if we can get some any additional information. So let's see. So apparently this thing had a lot of problems. Apparently it had a lot of beam disalignments, and not only that, it seemed to be a little bit ineffective. So at the time, I think what we were doing with this thing was a little bit beyond the technology of about 14 years ago. Well, really 20 years ago or so, crazily enough. And so it just looks like it wasn't really that successful for that reason. But nowadays, laser weapons are a completely different story. I mean, they've come a long way since this thing was introduced in 2002, but a very interesting concept to just see a giant laser beam director on the front of a 747. Really weird, but still, I hope I addressed that fairly well, at least in my opinion, and thank you once again for asking a very interesting question right there. But before we move on to our next live chat, many of y'all have seen it. I don't even have to introduce y'all to it. A massive super chat came in, and we got to say that we're greatly appreciative. And Matthew, take it away.
So this super chat came in from, guess who? Andy L. once again. And this time, he threw in a $100 donation. It showed up red across the live chat to let you know it's a big one. And thank you very much, Andy, for that big support. He said, since it's been a slow night. And then thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for the support, Andy L. And it is a little true. It's been a little bit of a slow night, low viewership, a little bit lower support than normal. But that's how it is, like I don't really go like in my head, man, like we didn't make squad or we didn't get views. Any night being on air is a great night to me, whether we do incredibly well and it's a huge night or it's a little night like tonight. But I thank you so much for the support, Andy L, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to help keep this, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. And I got to give you a huge thank you so much once again for the support. That is incredibly massive support. You supported this channel huge tonight, hugely, bigly. And we got to thank you so much once again for that. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. Thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next live chat.
All right, and our next live chat question here, after that super chat from Andy L, is going to go to, let's see here, W13RD guy, who says, how many steps away are bread lines now that the Russian government has introduced food price controls?
Interestingly enough, this is actually something incredibly interesting, word guy. The United States actually has some food price controls. They actually put a cap and a minimum on the price of milk in America, believe it or not. And that is a little bit of price control that we have in America. We also do that in a couple of other categories as well. I believe beef is a price controlled product. There is a minimum price price floor to beef that you cannot go past. So it's something interesting to say. A lot of modern countries actually have price floors and price ceilings. The United Kingdom, interestingly enough, actually had a fixed price for bread for quite a long time. I believe it was like £3. It wasn't £3. I'm trying to remember what it was, because it stayed pretty consistent for a while. I think it actually was £3 and 14 pence or something like that. But there is a lot of controlled prices out there, but the Russians doing the price control thing is showing that they're not doing too well, because the reason why price controls were implemented here in America and then they stayed is because of the Depression, and the same really for the United Kingdom. And so it's really interesting to see that they're starting to do that in a modern day sense, because that is letting us know that their economy is starting to go a little bit down the drain, and they're trying to make sure that these companies don't start to skyrocket their prices to the point that their goods are unaffordable. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next question here goes to Howard Tergel, who says, I read Israel-Hamas are closer than ever before on a peace treaty, and what are your thoughts?
I have actually not really heard a lot about that. That would be news to me if they were. Maybe it's possible. I remember the last time I really paid attention to the Hamas-Israel conflict is that there was a hardline stance by the Israelis that they were practically going to eradicate Hamas this time for the massacre. They still have a lot of hostages from the last I heard. I don't think Hamas has released any of those hostages. So going off of that, I would have to say I would understand that they're probably not close. But that's off the last thing I heard, and that was a couple of weeks ago. So I'll have to be looking at the Hamas-Israel situation a little bit more. But if that is the case, that's very interesting to see a bit of a shift. Maybe they're trying to close that chapter so they can start focusing on Lebanon instead. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next question, and also good night to Purple Gerbil, by the way, going looks like off the stream, and good night to you. And our next question here goes to Terry Davis, who says, do you think Putin will just take defensive positions until January 20th, 2025?
No, I don't think so, because they're still continuing offensives in Avdiivka and Bakhmut. It looks like they're still trying to achieve objectives, and I know what that question is trying to get at. It's trying to get at, will things change in America to where the conditions will be favorable by then? My answer will largely be no. Now, I will say this, because we've said this before in the past, and we've said, don't worry, Ukrainian support won't go anywhere, because really both sides are interested in supporting Ukraine. It's just a matter of trying to make it look like there's a difference in choice for the public. And I kind of, because I will tell y'all, we do watch a little bit of what goes on in the background on all sides here in America. And I don't know about you, Matty, but I heard some very interesting statements tonight that show me that I don't really think Ukraine support would be dead after the fact, if you know what I mean.
No, I got beat up because I actually said that today on the video at the very end of it. I said out loud on the end of the video, I said, I don't think Ukraine support's going to go anywhere, no matter what happens in the future. Because, you know, here's the catch, folks. I took political science. I know that doesn't make anyone an expert just to have a degree in it, but rhetoric does not always equal policy. And I think in this case right here, the way that America is in the world right now, it's very hyper interconnected with other countries and other economic trade alliances and things like that. It's nearly impossible to simply become isolationist at the flick of a switch. It's nearly impossible unless you're willing to destroy everything, and that's not going to happen. So to me, I think it's going to keep being funded in Ukraine. There's going to be really no real change on it. It might get slightly reduced here and there, but it's not going to be like, you know, tomorrow Ukraine aid's cut off, there's no more, and that's it. That's not going to happen, in my opinion. If I'm proven wrong, I'll eat crow, but I really doubt that's going to happen. But I agree with you, Enforcer.
And really quickly to talk on that a little bit more, at a specific event that is happening. That's the reason why we have a low viewership tonight. I watched a little bit of it before we got live on air. We'll do the I watch everything that comes on air about that, because this is a very rare moment. It only comes around every 4 years. So it's good to see what people will be saying. And of course, like many, I'm interested in what will be happening or what could happen depending on the outcome. So I paid attention to it a little bit, and I heard a specific person get up there tonight, and they talked about how it was a very interesting way they talked. I'm not going to get into their exact wordage, but they made it sound as though a peaceful position or an amicable position with the Russians is not going to be made if things were to change in how the current government exists in America, if y'all are catching my drift here. And I found that to be very interesting, because many of y'all will know that there's been a somewhat popular-ish rhetoric out there that America will pretty much become isolationist and pretty much back out of everything at this point. But I'm starting to get a specific idea that that is certainly not going to be the case with Ukraine, if anywhere. And especially, it sounded like, it actually sounded very interesting, because the way this person said something tonight, and I'm not going to say who it was, they pointed out the exact 3 areas that we focus on a lot on this channel, which is the Middle East, in between Israel and Iran, the East Asia, in between Taiwan and China, and then Eastern Europe in the form of Ukraine versus Russia. And it seemed as though that they were a big supporter of America being in all 3 places and supporting all 3 groups massively. And that's what I was getting, and I was very interested to hear that, because the thing is with that, you know, not to get too far into it, is that speakers at these specific conventions for the parties involved in America, they bring up very curated people to talk, and these people are pretty much laying out the objectives of that group for the next 4 years, or at least what they're aiming for. And the way that that was laid out tonight was wildly different than what we've been hearing for a while now. So it already looks like the shift we said was going to happen is going to happen. And of course, Ukraine support will continue to flow. With that, I will put this out there for y'all as well, because all of this is very, very predictable. I mean, it's not like, I'm not saying that we're a mastermind here and, you know, like we broke the code. Like, anyone could break this code. It's a very, very easy one to break. Once once the other side wins, if you want to put it that way, here's how it will always go. Once the other side wins, the losing side will start to go, now that the support will continue, oh, that group's a bunch of warmongers. They just want to kill people and keep a war going because it makes money for the greedy people at the top. This war needs to end. It needs to stop now. The rhetoric will switch, literally. It'll do a 180. And you will see that happen. I will promise you all that if a certain event happens. It doesn't matter either way. Really, to be honest with y'all, it doesn't matter how the election turns out this November. Support will continue. That's one thing I can be guaranteed on. Other things might change. Other things will change. But this will not. This will stay the same. And we'll still be here. We'll still be covering the war. You'll still see U.S. support flowing over there. You'll just see that the people over here that are for the war and the people over here who are against the war will take a switch if a certain thing happens that you're kind of asking about. That's just how it works in America. Not saying it's a bad thing, not saying it's a good thing. I'm just telling you how things always unfold. That's how it worked in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's how it'll work in Ukraine. But with that, I hope that does address...
And also, Tom said, do you really trust what they say, though? And he said, Andrew at Forcer Matt, me personally, I don't believe anything that anybody says until it's verified. And also, one thing that everybody knows at this point, and also if you don't know this, you should take note. People say whatever they need to say to get certain places. Whatever they think people need to hear to get into a place, when I say a place, I mean an office, they say it. That does not end up being what actually happens, but people simply say stuff, and, you know, it may or may not ever happen, and most times it actually doesn't happen. And it's just talk, and that's all it ever is talk. It's not actually turning into action. And also another thing as well, y'all notice that there was actually a guy, I'm going to be very vague with this, there was a guy the other day that spoke in front of a large crowd of people, and he said some sort of like Putin propaganda lines that were familiar about NATO provoking the war that started in Ukraine, which is obviously false. And he got booed. He did not get cheered, he got booed by the same people that people were very concerned about. So that tells you a lot as well, that the support for the pro-Putin lines of propaganda is not really there outside of the internet and the fake bot world. It's really not there. And in reality, people don't support Putin. That's the reality of it. But that's the way I take it.
I'll say this for y'all really quickly, because this is something, this isn't political. I'm going to tell y'all a little bit of a fact. As far as domestic politics are concerned, there is two opposing sides. But when it goes into foreign policy, usually both sides are fairly in agreement. It's just that there is a little bit of a dog and pony show that's done in the public sphere to make it look like there is an opposition to what the other side is doing in the world, but in reality, things go on. You got to remember, why there was Ukraine support going forward right now? It's because they had to get a majority in Congress, both in the House and the Senate, to be able to move the support forward. And they were able to get that, and the support went forward. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's just a part of it's kind of a part of the game that's played. It's nothing really to get that excited about, that worried about. It's just kind of a fact of life. So, you know, once again, I want to put it out there because we're always folks into not trying to stir up fear and pandemonium, which a lot of people love to stir up. Don't get worried about what's going on in politics. The things that need to happen will happen. And support for Ukraine is one of those things that needs to happen. So regardless of who's around or who's in charge, support for Ukraine will continue to flow. It's a guarantee. It's a promise. If we're wrong, we're wrong. And we'll apologize for that. But for now, that's largely how it always works. And we have a reason to believe it will keep working that way. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And of course, you know what? I'll actually go into a little bit of an example here really quickly. This is kind of dragging it out a little bit. But back in the day, because, you know, a lot of people are concerned about one person getting in charge that they believe is going to end support for Ukraine, end support for everything, and back off America and make it an isolationist country. I would like to remind you all really quickly of some things that did happen that would be to the contrary to that, and show that both sides, the current one and the former, both supported Ukraine and interests around the world. Taiwan got access to Patriot missile systems during that person's administration. And that was something that they didn't get access to before. And they were also given access during that time to pretty much buy whatever they wanted to from America. That was something that they actually didn't have access to really from the 90s up till then. So that does show that, at least in that category, both sides are in agreement. Taiwan is a very important issue. As far as Ukraine is concerned, way back in the day, back in 2018, which will, of course, let y'all know that that was during this time, Ukraine actually got access to hundreds of millions of dollars of U.S. military equipment, such as Humvees with tow mount. Well, hang on, let me think. How in the world do you say that? Humvee-mounted tow anti-tank guided missile launchers. The Ukrainians got access to those. They also got access to a whole bunch of other stuff. And in fact, during that period of time, U.S. forces actually got to go into Ukraine. I actually know someone specifically who back in 2017, they actually went to the Ukrainian air base right outside of the city of Kropyvnytsky. And they were there. They actually went there and were there for an entire year as a U.S. Air Force service member, and they were there operating and maintaining F-16s that were inside of Ukraine for a short while. So there is a reason, a very, very clear reason to believe that neither side will, kill Ukraine, kill Taiwan. Both of them are fairly on the same page about that. It's really the internal domestic issues that are different, and then we don't even get on that level at all. So I hope that removes some concern that y'all have. I'm very certain that both sides will continue Ukraine war support. So it's not really something that the Ukraine war community really has to get that involved in or talk about, because it doesn't really impact us either way who wins. They will both continue the support for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel around the globe. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. I hope that gives a little bit of backup. And if y'all don't believe me on that stuff, and I would say, some people are going to suspicion it because I'm kind of throwing these statements out there as trust me bros, kind of with really no backup or evidence off the top of my head. Y'all can Google the stuff I'm telling y'all, and y'all will see that it is true that that did happen. And it once again gives me a fairly good belief that nothing will really change on the world stage for America. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Avdiivka Plan, who says, any indication of partisan activity connected to the problems with the nuclear plant in Russia?
We have a reason to believe that it probably is partisan activity, but at the moment, we only have the video of the power plant pretty much blowing up, and we don't know if there was any partisan activity involved in that. So at the moment, we would have to declare ignorance, but I would assume there probably was some partisan activity involved, although we don't have any evidence to affirm that. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Chris Chastain, who says, with the fleet out of Crimea, is the fleet command and communications still in Crimea?
From what we understand, it is. Also, Matthew, that was weird. Did you see that? Like, yellow lines popped up on the map on Crimea. Like, that was an interesting little thing. Let's see if it does it again. Nope. It was only that one time. That was bizarre. I was like, where in the world are the yellow lines? It's a sign. They're taking it back. But beyond that, I would say, yes, from what we understand, most of the fleet headquarters and operations are still in Sevastopol, but I'm sure that over time they're probably going to start setting up temporary headquarters in Novorossiysk, because it's only logical to have their nucleus, their command nucleus, close to the actual fleet's base of operations, which is mostly in Novorossiysk now instead of Sevastopol. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Roger H., who said a Russian occupier in Crimea admits dressing as a civilian to hide among local Ukrainians. How will these Russians be identified and arrested when Ukraine wins?
The honest truth is that the areas of Ukraine that are currently under Russian occupation at the moment will most likely be divided up into military districts after the war if the land is retaken by Ukraine, which it most likely will. And the Ukrainians will most likely enact a state of martial law within these specific areas of Ukraine. The rest of Ukraine will not be in martial law, but these areas will be, while they pretty much allow the military to run, control, and govern these areas while they slowly transition them back into Ukrainian governmental control. That's what happened post-Civil War here in the United States, is that, let me try and lay the scene here pretty good. The Confederacy was defeated. Abraham Lincoln had to bring the Confederacy back into the Union and pretty much readmit the states that were a part of the Confederate States. But you can't do that literally just at the flip of the switch. It's actually a fairly long process. So that started pretty much martial law in the South from 1865 all the way up until 1877, meaning that none of the state governments really existed. The entire South was divided up into 5 separate military districts that were pretty much governed and operated by the Secretary of War, which in the modern day would be the Secretary of Defense, who was Edward Stanton. And that's how the South was run until they were able to readmit these states by having at least 10% of the population of each state swear loyalty to the Union or the United States of America. Or I believe there was another criteria that they had where a state could be readmitted. But that's how we did it here in America, and I would believe that would be a fairly prudent and rational response to trying to reintegrate these areas of Ukraine, because they have been out of Ukrainian governmental control for over 10 years at this point, and a lot has probably changed inside of these regions. So instead of just instantly bringing them back into Ukraine, it probably will end up being a military district with martial law enacted, and the Ukrainian armed forces will be down there making sure to try and root out any possible partisan activity, any kind of dissidence, and slowly reintegrate these areas back into the Ukrainian nation, and then they'll slowly reintroduce the civilian governments into those areas as well. It'll be a little bit of a lengthy process. There probably will be a little bit of friction, to be quite honest, but it's kind of just a part of reintegrating areas like that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to say, a huge thanks to all of y'all so much once again for watching. I'm absolutely astonished to see that 40,000 people have watched this stream since it began. It is absolutely wonderful to have had you all here tonight. If y'all enjoyed, please make sure to hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and make sure to comment as well. We absolutely love to see y'all here each and every day. We're honored and humbled to know that y'all enjoy our news. And of course, we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, and Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. And like the Enforcer said, thank you all for another great stream tonight. It was a tremendous one, and with about 40,000 viewers at the end of it. So actually not that bad overall. So with that, we'll see you all tomorrow night for the next nightly war news stream, and maybe the Enforcer will see you midday tomorrow as well for the next short war summary. But with that, get some rest, good night, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.